When it got slightly more crowded in the library in the afternoon, there would be youths going over to hit on her, only to get rejected gently. As time passed, it seemed as though she were really here because she wanted to read. She was just like a quiet beauty who had become a unique scene for others in the library. Ren Xiaosu thought that if the other party were really willing to get along peacefully with him, he would be fine with it. After all, he wasn't doing anything illegal here, so there was no reason he should be afraid of being monitored. Although he had hired an Yukian to teach Wang Yuji and the others, there was nothing out of place with the lessons. At most, they would have to be more careful when discussing how to design the armor. So Ren Xiaosu simply ignored Zhou Yingxiu's presence. However, Ren Xiaosu realized an Yukian kept getting distracted with staring at Zhou Yingxiu. That was especially so today after Zhou Yingxiu entered the library and actually took off her coat to reveal a kipao underneath. The hem of the kipao had a slit that almost went up to her hips. As Zhou Yingxiu sat quietly, an Yukian stared straight at her. Ren Xiaosu felt helpless. He wondered if Zhou Yingxiu might be a supernatural being too. Why was she not afraid of the cold? At this moment, Wang Yuji asked, "Teacher An, about this question," an Yukian came back to his senses and said, "Ah, this question is really fair? No, I meant this question is really slender." "I don't mean that either," Ren Xiaosu looked calmly at an Yukian. "Say, shouldn't you focus on your class? We paid you for it." An Yukian was a little embarrassed. "Don't you think she looks really elegant sitting there quietly?" Ren Xiaosu sighed. He went to the bookshelf and found 3 books before walking over to Zhou Yingxiu. An Yukian was thinking how ballsy Ren Xiaosu was to try to hit on her in such a direct way. Zhou Yingxiu pretended not to see Ren Xiaosu. When Ren Xiaosu walked up to her, she finally looked up. "Hello, is something the matter?" Ren Xiaosu placed the Spare Me, Great Lord novel in his hand in front of Zhou Yingxiu. "I think this book is quite interesting. You should read it." After that, Ren Xiaosu went back to sit down and continued with studying by himself. Meanwhile, Zhou Yingxiu flipped open the book in front of her curiously, hoping to find out more about the book Ren Xiaosu liked. Eventually, while Ren Xiaosu and the students were getting their afternoon lessons, Zhou Yingxiu was laughing so hard in the corner of the library she was curling into a ball. Her face went numb from laughter. The quiet and demure image she had painstakingly built up was completely ruined. Zhou Yingxiu did not do anything for the entire afternoon other than laugh like a lunatic. Ren Xiaosu looked at an Yukian. "Do you think she's still elegant now?" An Yukian took a deep breath and said, "Not anymore." "Then focus on teaching," Ren Xiaosu said. However, Ren Xiaosu did not expect Zhou Yingxiu to start pestering him ever since then. Every day, she would ask him what books were good reads and would even go over to discuss what she thought of the books he recommended. Ren Xiaosu thought to himself that this woman was indeed someone who specialized in getting close to someone. She could really make the best of a given situation. However, Ren Xiaosu did not reject Zhou Yingxiu too obviously either and would still recommend some extremely boring books to her every day. In the end, Ren Xiaosu realized she would still finish reading them no matter how boring they were. Afterwards, she would go over and chat with him. Actually, if he were qualified enough, Ren Xiaosu could have recommended Zhou Yingxiu some very high-level math texts. This way, even if Zhou Yingxiu had to force herself to read it, she wouldn't understand anything. However, he wasn't qualified enough. In fact, Ren Xiaosu might not even be as good at math as Zhou Yingxiu. He was too severely limited by his knowledge to even use this method against her. An Yukian went up to Ren Xiaosu and suddenly said, "Bro, I can tell that girl named Zhou Yingxiu really likes you." Ren Xiaosu chuckled. "Like me? She's a fucking spy." Even if he had not spotted Zhou Yingxiu among the spies previously, Ren Xiaosu could still sense there was something wrong with her based on his intuition built up in the wilderness. One who was unaccountably solicitous had to be hiding evil intentions. Zhou Yingxiu thought it would be very easy for someone of Ren Xiaosu's age to get seduced by her beauty. Would a 17-year-old boy have much experience? Any extortionist in the game one would prefer boys of this age. As a matter of fact, Zhou Yingxiu was not wrong. If it were Wang Yuji and the others, they might have already fallen into the trap. However, Ren Xiaosu was different. At night, Ren Xiaosu bade farewell to Wang Yuji and the others. He told them to go home first while he headed off to Liu Yuan's place to learn hand-to-hand combat. But when he left the library, he saw Zhou Yingxiu standing at the entrance. Ren Xiaosu pretended not to see her as he walked out. Zhou Yingxiu called out to him, "Do you have time? There's something I'd like to talk to you about." "No," Ren Xiaosu said. Suddenly, the voice from the palace said, "Quest, help the woman asking for help." This quest appeared too suddenly and caught Ren Xiaosu off guard. "I suddenly have time now. How can I help you?" Zhou Yingxiu froze for a couple seconds but quickly adjusted her emotions and smiled. "It's my birthday today, but I don't have any relatives in the stronghold anymore. Can you accompany me tonight?" Ren Xiaosu was at a loss. "How? Let's go to my place. We can play some games." Zhou Yingxiu smiled. "Play what games?" Ren Xiaosu was already starting to feel like giving up on this quest. "A game that can't be played alone." Zhou Yingxiu winked at Ren Xiaosu. What kinds of games were there that could not be played alone? Ren Xiaosu gave it some thought and said, "Do you mean jump rope? I'm really good at that." Zhou Yingxiu was confused. She said, "We can't jump rope with just two people." At this moment, an Yuqian walked out of the library. Seeing that the library was about to be closed, Ren Xiaosu said, "There. We have enough people." Zhou Yingxiu smiled awkwardly. "Forget it, I don't want to play anymore." Ren Xiaosu checked the palace's quest and said, "No, we have to play." Zhou Yingxiu was speechless. What kind of fucking person was this? Half an hour later, the voice from the palace said, "Quest complete. Awarded perfect skill duplication scroll." Ren Xiaosu was stunned. This perfect skill duplication scroll that came out of nowhere nearly made him jump for joy. After all, it was a really rare item. Perhaps with this one perfect skill duplication scroll, he could gain another new power. Even if he did not manage to learn a superpower, he could still gain a master-level skill. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "What if I copy someone else's master-level skill without having the corresponding advanced-level skill?" "Invalid," the palace said coldly. "That isn't fair." Ren Xiaosu protested. The palace explained, "A basic and perfect skill duplication scroll can be used at the same time to completely learn a master-level skill in the event you do not have the corresponding skill set." The Badger game is an extortion scheme or confidence trick in which the victim is tricked into a compromising position to make them vulnerable to blackmail. https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/badger_game. If he wanted to continue learning, he had to use the perfect skill duplication scroll after his firearms proficiency reached the advanced level. Meanwhile, the perfect skill duplication scroll would allow the user to randomly copy the target's master-level skill or superpower. If he had duplicated Yang Xiaojin's perfect firearms proficiency and did not have the corresponding advanced firearms proficiency, then this perfect skill duplication scroll would have been useless. Thus, the perfect skill duplication scroll was not without its risks. However, the palace had now given him an easier choice. When paired with a basic skill duplication scroll, the perfect skill duplication scroll enabled him to learn anything in one shot. Now that Ren Xiaosu had obtained the perfect skill duplication scroll through his quest, he definitely had to learn some superpowers with it. So it was better to use it on someone who had superpowers. But after thinking for a long time, he realized there was no one around him he could learn any powers from. No, he could learn from Yan Liuyuan. Although a selfish person like him had no use for a power such as making wishes, if he gained the ability to manipulate curses instead, that was something he could really play around with. Moreover, it didn't seem like Yan Liuyuan had any other master-level skills. That way, the palace would automatically decide to learn his superpower. Thinking of this, Ren Xiaosu ran back home excitedly. He did not even go over to Liu Yuan's place. Both An Yuqian and Zhou Yingxiu were left dumbstruck. When Ren Xiaosu returned home, he called Yan Liuyuan into the house. He immediately said to the palace, "Use the perfect skill duplication scroll." However, something Ren Xiaosu didn't expect happened. The palace answered, unable to use the skill duplication scroll on the target. This time, Ren Xiaosu was stunned. He never expected this outcome. This had never happened before when he used the skill duplication scroll on anyone else. Moreover, based on the palace's answer, he couldn't even use the basic skill duplication scroll on Yan Liuyuan either. Ren Xiaosu scrutinized Yan Liuyuan. Why was Yan Liuyuan an exception to the palace? After all, the palace was a power that could even reset nanomachines. Yan Liuyuan was not a refugee, or rather, Ren Xiaosu was not sure if Yan Liuyuan was a refugee in the past. That was because, he picked Yan Liuyuan up in the wilderness. That winter, he had found Yan Liuyuan unconscious out in the wilderness. Initially, Ren Xiaosu wanted to leave Yan Liuyuan there and not do anything about it. But in the end, he started feeling uneasy after leaving him there for some time before going back to bring Yan Liuyuan to the town. Back then, he asked many people while carrying Yan Liuyuan on his back if they knew whose child it was. In the end, no one was able to answer him. After Yan Liuyuan woke up, he could not remember anything and only addressed Ren Xiaosu as his brother. But it was at that moment that Ren Xiaosu was touched, because he had never felt anything like having a family before. However, Ren Xiaosu was a ruthless guy. If he could not even support himself at that time, how was he going to support others? He had thought of chasing Yan Liuyuan away when he regained consciousness. But Yan Liuyuan kept staying outside his shack the entire day while in tears. At that time, Ren Xiaosu hardened his heart again and asked him, "Can't you go to someone else's house and cry? I can't support you." Yan Liuyuan replied in confusion, "But you're my brother." Ren Xiaosu's heart softened for the first time ever. If you want to survive in this wilderness, you have to at least have one skill, right? Tell me, what can you help me with? In truth, Ren Xiaosu was trying to find an excuse to keep him. If the child in front of him could help him out a little, even if it was just doing some simple chores for him, he would grit his teeth and keep Yan Liuyuan with him. But Yan Liuyuan cried for a long time and was not able to say what skills he had. All he did was say he could make wishes. At first, Ren Xiaosu did not believe it. He thought that having this ability was as good as having nothing. He could also make wishes, but they could not be fulfilled. But after testing it out with Yan Liuyuan twice, Ren Xiaosu realized what Yan Liuyuan said was true. All these years, Ren Xiaosu had never bothered to investigate Yan Liuyuan. After all, who had the time to delve into such matters these days? But now that even the palace couldn't duplicate Yan Liuyuan's power, it left Ren Xiaosu deep in thought. Why had Liuyuan appeared outside in the wilderness alone? Was he abandoned by his parents? Thinking about it carefully, Yan Liuyuan's power to make his wishes come true and manipulate curses seemed like a power only gods should possess. All mortals wanted to be gods since only gods could get whatever they desired. Yan Liuyuan blinked at Ren Xiaosu and thought for a long time. "Bro, what's wrong with you?" Ren Xiaosu pinched Yan Liuyuan's cheeks like how he would knead dough and laughed. He said, "Just where did you come from, kid?" Yan Liuyuan's voice was distorted from his face being pinched. "If you continue doing this to me, I won't go easy on you." Ren Xiaosu chuckled. "You're all grown up now, Aaron Cha." All of a sudden, a loud crash came from the yard next door. It was followed by the sound of people crying out in pain. Ren Xiaosu frowned. What the hell was that? Then they heard a familiar voice shout, "6 assassins!" 2 have been shot down. The voice obviously belonged to one of Luo Lan's men. As he wondered what was going on, he went straight out the door and jumped over the yard's wall. He discovered that 6 assassins dressed in black had entered Luo Lan's yard and were holding guns fitted with silencers. 2 of the assassins had already been shot dead by Luo Lan's men. One of Luo Lan's men was hiding behind a tree in the courtyard, unable to come out from his cover due to the enemy's heavy firepower. Meanwhile, Luo Lan and his other men were stuck inside the house. They had tried to rush out but were stopped by the assassins firing at them. When Ren Xiaosu saw this, he quickly guessed these people were probably here to assassinate Luo Lan. However, they must not have expected to find Luo Lan and his men with their guards still up and that there would still be people patrolling in the courtyard during his house arrest. So the moment they entered the front yard, they were shot dead by Luo Lan's subordinate in the cover of the darkness who similarly had a silenced gun. Ren Xiaosu sighed. For an arrogant fatso like Luo Lan to be able to live up till now, there had to have been a reason. When he jumped in, the people who were here to assassinate Luo Lan were not expecting someone from next door to jump over. They instantly pointed their guns at Ren Xiaosu, but it was already too late. The assassins only saw a blur as Ren Xiaosu dashed in an arc towards them. Ren Xiaosu hacked the gun out of one of their hands while grabbing the back of the assassin's neck to use him as a human shield. With just 3 shots, he finished off the remaining 3 assassins in the yard. Meanwhile, the assassin he was holding as a human shield was like a fearful little chick as he lost all will to resist. Ren Xiaosu had wanted to leave a survivor for Luo Lan to interrogate. But before he could even call Luo Lan to come out, the person swallowed a suicide pill to kill himself. Ren Xiaosu frowned as he threw him onto the ground. He could only watch helplessly as his opponent started foaming at the mouth. This was the first time he had seen suicide agents with his own eyes. "Come on out, fatty, they're all dead," Ren Xiaosu shouted into the house. That soldier shook his head. "I didn't see it clearly. Who are these people?" Ren Xiaosu looked at Luo Lan and said, "You better not tell outsiders that I helped you. I don't want to get into trouble for it." "All right, that's for sure." Luo Lan looked at the corpses and said, "Search them and see if there are any clues. However, it should be quite meaningless to do so. Suicide agents won't carry anything that might offer a clue to them." As expected, they discovered nothing else on these people except for guns and magazines after searching through their bodies. Luo Lan squatted and thought for a moment. "Let me think about this. If I were to die, who would benefit?" Ren Xiaosu sat on a stone stool beside him and let him think about it slowly. "Could it be the Zone Consortium?" Luo Lan asked doubtfully. "If they had me killed, then the Yang Consortium and Qing Consortium will immediately descend into war. The natural environment in the north around the Zone Consortium is not as good as the south. They've been plotting to get this region for a long time now but aren't a match for us. So they tried to infiltrate Stronghold 178 and use them as leverage. If the Yang Consortium and Qing Consortium were to start fighting, they could just sit back and reap the benefits." However, Luo Lan changed his mind and said, "But the Zone Consortium's people are still in the stronghold. If they kill me, Qing Zhen would probably think in that direction as well and might then focus his anger onto the Zone Consortium instead. So it could also be possible that the Yang Consortium is trying to kill me while the Zone Consortium's people are in Stronghold 88, making it difficult to discern what really happened. That way, they can force the Zone Consortium to face Qing Zhen together with them since the Zone Consortium couldn't prove it wasn't they who assassinated me." Ren Xiaosu snapped, "Your analysis is as good as useless. What else can I do?" Luo Lan stared at him. "Since there's no fucking clues here, I can only make some wild guesses." "All right, take your time to guess." Ren Xiaosu said, "Remember not to tell anyone that I was the one who saved you. I'll be leaving the stronghold the day after tomorrow, so don't create unnecessary trouble for me." Luo Lan's expression immediately changed. "What am I to do if you leave? What if someone tries to kill me again?" Don't worry, Liu Yuan is staying just next door. Ren Xiaosu said nonchalantly, besides, that guy from the Zone Consortium is going with me too. You'll probably be safe after he leaves. Where are you all off to? Luolan wondered. We're going to exterminate the bandits. Ren Xiaosu jumped back over to his yard. He heard Luolan lower his voice and shout, Wait, you said that Liu Yuan will protect me? Can he really? By now, Ren Xiaosu was really treating Luolan as a friend. It was the same for Luolan, so Ren Xiaosu did not mind helping Luolan out. It was just that tonight's incident was really strange. The Yang Consortium and Qing Consortium seemed to be getting along peacefully with both their armies still working together to fight the Li Consortium at the front lines. It was as though Luolan were not under house arrest in Stronghold 88. But underneath the surface of this seemingly calm sea, turbulent waves were rolling. Right now, the Li Consortium's front line at Mt Guangying was in grave danger. Many of the Li Consortium's military forces were forced to resort to guerrilla warfare against the Yang Consortium and Qing Consortium inside the mountains in an attempt to destroy the supply lines and marching routes of both parties. After all, they were no match for the Yang Consortium's armored brigade on the front lines. The Qing Consortium's artillery troops were especially brutal, so the Li Consortium could only use this method to delay their impending defeat. When their defeat finally arrived, the Yang Consortium and Qing Consortium would probably start fighting each other immediately. This was what a lot of people speculated. Luolan and Ren Xiaosu both knew Qing Zhen would send someone to save him, but no one knew what method Qing Zhen would use to conduct the rescue operation. Launch a frontal assault? In that case, it would definitely be over for Luolan as well. Ren Xiaosu felt that based on his level of understanding, he probably couldn't guess what Qing Zhen was planning. With the imminent departure to exterminate the bandits, Xiaohu got busy again. She rushed everywhere to buy all sorts of supplies for Ren Xiaosu as she was afraid he would suffer when he went outside. And now, Ren Xiaosu's storage space was equipped with a vacuum preservation zone, so the food would not go bad when stored inside. This is a new tent, a waterproof cushion, a blanket and a mattress, Xiaohu said. Although she did not know how Ren Xiaosu would take them with him, she knew Ren Xiaosu had the ability to carry a lot of things with him. After all, she was one of the closest people to Ren Xiaosu. How could she not have noticed anything after living together every day? I just bought these stainless steel bowls and chopsticks. Take them with you as well. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, Wait, why are there two sets of bowls and chopsticks? Aren't you going with Ms. Xiaojun? Xiaohu paused. Since you can bring more things with you, you should bring an extra set for her just in case. Then why is there only one tent? Ren Xiaosu was dumbfounded. Xiaohu started laughing. Why are you being so shy? I only packed one tent because it's for your own good. It's fine if you don't get to use it, but if you do, you'll thank me for it later. These words startled Ren Xiaosu quite a bit. He did not know how to respond. Then at this moment, a car stopped outside the house. Someone knocked on the door after getting out and asked, Hello, is anyone around? Ren Xiaosu raised his eyebrows. This voice was a complete stranger, for he had never heard it before. He walked over to open the door and found a young man he had never seen before standing there. Hello, my name is Zhong Cheng. Nice to meet you. Zhong Cheng was the same height as Ren Xiaosu. He was standing there holding some gifts with both hands. Zhong Cheng's subordinates who were standing behind him wanted to help him carry the gifts, but Zhong Cheng smiled and said, It's all right, I can handle it myself. Wait for me outside. Don't come in and dirty their front yard. Ren Xiaosu had to admit that Zhong Cheng looked quite friendly when he smiled. He had the cleansing presence of a spring breeze and was completely different from what Ren Xiaosu had imagined. He had originally thought Zhong Cheng was here to find trouble with him, but in the end, it seemed like he was here to give him some gifts. Then Zhong Cheng said, You must be Ren Xiaosu. I brought you some gifts from up north. There are hometown specialty fruit, wolfberries. These gifts are very cheap, so I hope you won't mind it. Ren Xiaosu thought Wang Fugui might have some use for these items, so he decided to accept them. Zhong Cheng said happily, I won't be going inside. As we'll be going to exterminate the bandits together, there's still some supplies I have to purchase at the market. Is there anything you need to buy? I can get them for you. Ren Xiaosu gave him a look. Nah, I'm good. Please do take care of me on our expedition to exterminate the bandits, Zhong Cheng said politely. Sure, I'll take care of you, Ren Xiaosu said nonchalantly. Thank you so much, Zhong Cheng said. Ren Xiaosu was waiting for this moment. He did not receive any gratitude tokens from Zhong Cheng. 1 https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/gaji. Gaji. Yan Liuyuan watched as Ren Xiaosu clasped hands with Zhong Cheng. All there was left to do was to take vows to become blood brothers with the other party. After Zhong Cheng finally left, Ren Xiaosu heaved a sigh of relief. It's really difficult dealing with these people from the strongholds. We all know that we're just putting on an act, yet we still have to go along with it and cooperate with each other. Bro, you were smiling very sincerely just now. Yan Liuyuan laughed and said, I seriously thought you were about to acknowledge him as your blood brother. Don't you know how capable your brother is? Ren Xiaosu said proudly. After sending off the visitor, someone knocked on the door again. Ren Xiaosu thought that rascal, Zhong Cheng, had come back again. He immediately put on a smile and went to answer the door. When he opened it, he was almost about to shake the other party's hand. Bro! Yang Yuan, who was standing outside, looked at Ren Xiaosu in surprise. He did not understand what was happening. Ha ha ha! Ren Xiaosu was embarrassed. That was just a misunderstanding. Who are you? Although Ren Xiaosu had gone to the gala the other night, Yang Yuan only came out of the villa after he left the function with Yang Xiaojun. So Ren Xiaosu had not seen Yang Yuan, nor knew who he was. Yang Yuan smiled and said, Hello, my name is Yang Yulan. I'm Yang Xiaojun's third uncle. Oh! Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment before quickly moving aside. Please, come in. Ren Xiaosu was thinking to himself that it must have been this man-child who had invited him to the gala without giving him any prep time. He was probably trying to make him stay away from Yang Xiaojun when he did that. But of course, Ren Xiaosu would not mention that explicitly. Yang Yuan had personally come over with his bodyguards and subordinates following behind him. They entered the yard as well and kept watch on the surroundings. Without waiting for Ren Xiaosu to say anything, Yang Yuan started speaking. I'm really sorry. My arrangements had not been properly thought out, so there was a lack of preparation when I invited you to attend the gala. The main issue was that this gala had already been in the plans for a long time. But since you just arrived at the stronghold, I was a little negligent in hosting you. Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, No, I'm just a refugee. It was great that I got to see what these parties are like. Wang Fugui watched their interaction through the window and mumbled, Those two foxes. Yan Liuyuan chuckled and said, My brother is no fox. Then what is he? A predator of foxes. At this moment, Yang Yuan had someone bring the gifts over. I didn't prepare anything too lavish on my first visit, but I hope you'll like it. I like it, I like it. I like any gifts from you. Ren Xiaosu laughed. Ren Xiaosu waited for Yang Yuan to get down to business. He did not believe the second-in-command of the Yang Consortium would come here just to pay him a visit and offer him gifts in apology. There was definitely something more important than that. In the end, Yang Yuan beat around the bush for half an hour before changing the topic to what he wanted to discuss. Ren Xiaosu really admired the patience of such people. Yang Yulan said, Su Xianchu had been talking a lot about you for the past few days before he departed back to Stronghold 178. Are you close with him? Yes. Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, We went to the Jing Mountains together, and Ziajin was there too. Oh! Yang Yulan seemed to have just found out about this. He then asked, "Do you know Commander Zhang then?" Zhang Jinglin. Ren Xiaosu was taken aback a little. "Yes, I know him." Yang Yuan smiled and said, "You and him, he's my teacher," Ren Xiaosu said decisively. It was Yang Yuan who was startled this time. He had not expected Ren Xiaosu and Zhang Jinglin to have such a relationship. Teacher and protégé? Ren Xiaosu had a calm expression on his face. Who wouldn't know how to borrow someone else's prestige to protect themselves? He had also used the silk banner Luolan had given him as protection from persecution. For Ren Xiaosu, the practical usage of such things was much more important. Gaining a few more of these amulets be much more powerful than anything else. He would not bother to hide anything at a time like this. Since he knew Yang Yulan had thoughts of allying with Stronghold 178, it wouldn't really matter if Ren Xiaosu decided to put on an act here. Besides, he was not lying about Zhang Jinglin being his teacher. Not only that, but he had also even worked with Zhang Jinglin before. Weren't they both teachers of the school back in that town? Yang Yuan deliberated for a moment before saying, "Then why didn't you go to Stronghold 178? It's not that I'm not going," Ren Xiaosu said in a grave voice, "but I was planning on going there after some time. After all, there are more important matters to attend to, so I had Su Xianchu head there first after giving him a recommendation letter." Yang Yuan looked calm on the surface, but his mind was racing. Could Su Xianchu be commanding such an important role in Stronghold 178 because of Ren Xiaosu's recommendation letter? It was no wonder that when Su Xianchu heard Ren Xiaosu's name, he did not even care how it would look to the gala when he took off in search of Ren Xiaosu. Although, the more important thing Ren Xiaosu had mentioned was probably Yang Ziajin, wasn't it? Ren Xiaosu also wore a calm expression. He did not feel guilty when telling the half-truths. "It looks like Commander Zhang values you a lot." Yang Yulan smiled amiably. "I guess it's not too bad. Teach once wanted me to take over his job, but the timing wasn't right yet," Ren Xiaosu said seriously. He wasn't telling a lie. After all, Zhang Jinglin had indeed chosen him as the substitute teacher. He was planning on making him the teacher of the school. However, it sounded different to Yang Yuan. Did Zhang Jinglin really want this young man in front of him to take over Stronghold 178 in the future? The timing wasn't right yet should mean that Zhang Jinglin was planning on grooming him some more. Many of the old-timers knew Zhang Jinglin worked at the grassroots level for a full 10 years until everyone was convinced before he took over command of Stronghold 178. Therefore, this explanation made sense to Yang Yuan. Zhang Jinglin had been chosen as the commander of Stronghold 178 even though he used to be a refugee. At Stronghold 178, it did not matter what your birthright was. The way Yang Yuan looked at Ren Xiaosu turned gentler. "You're a promising young man." He seemed to have completely forgotten what he had said to Yang Ziajin. "I heard you're also going on the expedition to exterminate the bandits." This is an issue for the Northwest, so of course I won't hesitate to do it," Ren Xiaosu said righteously. "Good, good." Yang Yulan reminded, "You must watch out for yourself. There's no hurry to exterminate the bandits. I believe we can definitely get rid of the banditry issue in the future. All right, I won't stay around any longer. You should also be preparing to set off on your trip, so I'll leave you to do what you need." "Thank you, third uncle," Ren Xiaosu said. Yang Yuan's smile grew wider at the words third uncle. Compared to the Zone Consortium, he was definitely hoping to work with Stronghold 178 much more. That was what true support was really like. If Stronghold 178 could offer him a helping hand, it would probably be a piece of cake to devour the Zone Consortium as well. However, Yang Yuan would not place all his chips on one person alone. He still had to verify the veracity of Ren Xiaosu's claims. But from the looks of it, his credibility was very high. After all, there was already Su Xianchu's testimonial. The entire valley's surface and underground had a large number of urban structures that remained from before the cataclysm. Most of the things left behind were useless, but if anyone found something useful there, it would be priceless. There was a group of merchants who pretended to pass through the area and claimed they were on a business trip, when in fact, they stayed around to excavate any useful resources and technologies from the valley. Some people used to try to excavate the technologies and secrets within the valley with the aid of electronic devices, but in reality, the massive nuclear haze and radioactive clouds from the fallout would destroy any kind of electronics on the ground. The things they found were either already rusted or could not be used even if they were relatively well preserved. At first, the Zone Consortium did not interfere with those merchant groups and allowed them to excavate as they wished. But after the excavation, bandits would arrive as expected and plunder all of their valuable possessions. As a result, some of the bandit gangs grew bigger and stronger because of the plundering. Meanwhile, the Zone Consortium also rose and became a force to be reckoned with in the northern wastes. However, the proper organizations generally despised the Zone Consortium as they always felt the Zone Consortium did not have much depth in the way they did things. In order to exonerate themselves, the Zone Consortium started breaking off their relations with the bandits in recent years. But when they attempted to kill the bandits, they realized the bandits had become familiar with all the terrain in the valley and were scattered in every corner of the place. The Zone Consortium had quite a problem on their hands. All the bandits in the valley had become irritated with the Zone Consortium now. Although they used to pay tribute to the corporation annually, the Zone Consortium was suddenly trying to kick them to the curb after they had outlived their usefulness. They were too merciless. And now, the Zone Consortium had suddenly joined forces with the Yang Consortium and Stronghold 178 with the intention of leveraging both their strengths, all in order to make a clean break with their evil past. As long as they exterminated all the bandits, everyone would naturally forget how they started out in 100 years or so. In the house, Xiaohu said, "I made some snacks for you. This one is apparently a very famous mung bean cake one here in the stronghold. Take it with you." And Ren Xiaosu listened to Xiaohu's chatter. Xiaohu would always help ready his belongings whenever he went on long trips now, so he did not have to pack on his own anymore. Luolan leaned over the wall and watched. He interrupted, "You're bringing so much food with you, eh? Why don't you bring me along as well? I'm quite the fighter." Ren Xiaosu was speechless as he stared at Luolan. "Do you know why quiet people seem smarter than talkative ones?" Luolan was surprised. "Why?" "Because they hide all their stupid thoughts on the inside." Luolan was speechless. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "Have you heard of a person named Zong Cheng?" Zong Cheng? Luolan tried to remember. "I've never heard of him before. But I suppose he's a family member of the Zone Consortium?" "We aren't really familiar with them." "Doesn't your Qing Consortium share a border with the Zone Consortium's territory in the north?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "The Zone Consortium is a cackle of hyenas. None of the proper organizations are willing to deal with them. Tigers will never make friends with hyenas." Luolan said, "In any case, you should be pretty careful of him." Ren Xiaosu knew it was time to leave when he heard the sound of a vehicle coming to a stop outside. Wang Fugui, Yan Liuyuan and the others sent him off together and reminded him to be careful. Ren Xiaosu opened the door and came out onto the street. He saw Yang Xiaojun driving an off-road vehicle, and no one else was in it besides her. There were also 2 military transport trucks following, and they looked like they were transporting quite a few soldiers and supplies. "Get in," Yang Xiaojun said. Ren Xiaosu turned around to Yan Liuyuan and instructed, "While I'm not around, you must watch over our family." Yan Liuyuan nodded vigorously. Then Ren Xiaosu opened the vehicle's door and left. Along the way, Ren Xiaosu nonchalantly asked, "How many soldiers are in the trucks behind us?" Yang Xiaojun glanced at him. 30 nano-soldiers. They're here to help with the extermination of the bandits. Nano-soldiers. Ren Xiaosu's eyes lit up, but he immediately dismissed the idea of harming these nano-soldiers. After all, they were here to protect Yang Xiaojun, so he should not be attacking any of them. When he thought of this, Ren Xiaosu felt quite at odds. Although he and Yan Liuyuan did not lack nanomachines, Wang Yuqi and the others still did not have enough. Yang Xiaojun looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, "What did you say to my third uncle? Why did he suddenly change his attitude? He actually asked me to get along with you. I didn't really say much." Ren Xiaosu chuckled. "I only said that I was Zhang Jinglan's student. There's nothing wrong with saying that, right?" Yang Xiaojun gave him a look. "My third uncle only cares about his interests, so don't be fooled by his appearance. If he finds out you were lying to him, he'll probably change his attitude immediately." If Yang Yuan found out Ren Xiaosu was only talking about taking over as the schoolteacher when he said Zhang Jinglan had asked him to take over his job, his attitude would definitely be very different. He wouldn't immediately abandon Ren Xiaosu as a choice, but Zhong Cheng would appear to be much more important than Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "Then what about you?" Yang Xiaojun smirked. "Guess." She stepped on the gas, and the off-road vehicle sped towards the northern gate of Stronghold 88. They were going there to meet up with the others from the Zone Consortium. When Ren Xiaosu and the convoy left, Yan Liuyuan stood at the door and looked in the direction of the departed off-road vehicle for some time. Xiao came up to him. "Don't worry, your brother's injuries have already gotten much better. He'll be fine." Yan Liuyuan said, "I wasn't worried about that." "What are you thinking about then?" Xiao asked with a smile. Yan Liuyuan looked at Xiao. "Big sis, they're holding a parent-teacher conference at school tomorrow. Can you go on my brother's behalf?" Xiao felt a little awkward. "Me? Am I allowed to? You're my big sister." "Of course you can," Yan Liuyuan replied with a smile. Although Xiao had been with them for a long time, and Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liuyuan had also accepted her wholeheartedly, she sometimes still worried about it in the middle of the night. She was unsure if she had really integrated into their family. They had to be a real family for her to be asked to attend the parent-teacher conference, right? Moreover, Yan Liuyuan had addressed her as Big Sis instead of Big Sister Xiao. It somehow felt like the relationship between them had gotten much closer at this moment. Xiao asked curiously, "Then should I dress up a little?" When Xiao was living back in the town of Stronghold 113, she would always wear makeup. But ever since she followed Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liuyuan, she no longer wore makeup most days because she had to do housework. She would present herself with her natural appearance almost every day. Now that she was going to attend a parent-teacher conference with Yan Liuyuan, she could not possibly disgrace Yan Liuyuan and let his classmates think that his big sister was an unrefined woman. She had to give herself a makeover. Yan Liuyuan looked at Xiao and said with a smile, "Big sis, you're pretty even without any makeup." "It's true." Xiao rolled her eyes at him. "You're such a sweet talker." One mung bean cake, lu dao jiao, is a traditional and popular Chinese dessert in summer. https://www.chinesishuanfood.com/mung-bean-cake. But he did not tell Ren Xiaosu because he was worried it would affect Ren Xiaosu on his expedition. Of course, there were also other reasons for not telling him. This was also the first time Xiao was attending a parent-teacher conference. She purposely went to a shop in the stronghold to get new clothes and even bought some new cosmetics and jewelry. After Xiao got dressed and walked out of her room, Yan Liuyuan's eyes lit up. Big sister Xiao is so beautiful. Xiao had put on a simple pair of earrings and wore a new down coat and boots. She originally wanted to wear a skirt but was persuaded by Yan Liuyuan not to as the weather was too cold. Xiao had initially put on too much makeup due to nervousness. However, Yan Liuyuan helped her clean it off after laughing at her for a long time. Yan Liuyuan said, "Big sis, you're naturally beautiful. Even if you don't put on any makeup, you still look good." Xiaoyu poked his forehead and said, "Aren't you the sweet talker? Let's go to the parent-teacher conference now. The students probably won't be able to take their eyes off you after they see you," Yan Liuyuan said with a smile. It was no wonder Yan Liuyuan could be a friend of the women wherever he went. Although he might not know how to compliment them, he made up for it by complimenting them often. Women always loved receiving compliments, after all. However, Yan Liuyuan really felt a sense of happiness when he saw Xiaoyu so happy. Xiaoyu took the streetcar to school with Yan Liuyuan and Wang Dalong. While on the streetcar, Yan Liuyuan even said, "Look, that old man behind us has been staring at you the entire time." When they arrived at school, Yan Liuyuan realized most of the people were already there. As this school was mainly attended by the children of the rich and influential figures of the stronghold, everyone owned a private car. Since they took the streetcar here, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary if they arrived late. Fortunately, they weren't late. But when they entered the classroom, Yan Liuyuan felt the parents' eyes looked a little strange. They were all checking them out. Then they started whispering to the children and parents next to them. A middle-aged female teacher walked into the classroom. She said with a smile, "In last semester's final exams, the students in our class fared extremely well. So let's give our children a round of encouraging applause." Xiaoyu also clapped her hands. However, Yan Liuyuan whispered next to her, "Big sis, I didn't take those final exams, so you don't have to clap." Xiaoyu looked at him askance. "I can still encourage you even if you didn't take those exams. You're such a good child, so I must encourage you." Yan Liuyuan held back his laughter. From the front of the room, the teacher talked about the curriculum and matters regarding the children's weekday prep classes. She encouraged the children to attend more tutors because the students in this class would have to make a final sprint for their university placings in the future. If they picked up knowledge beyond their years early, they would be one step ahead of those from the other high schools. As the saying went, once you got a head start in life, you would have an advantage. That was the logic. Yan Liuyuan and Xiaoyu were not really listening to the teacher's speech. Although Ren Xiaosu had always urged him to study hard, Xiaoyu was afraid that Yan Liuyuan would get exhausted from studying, so she did not place too much emphasis on his learning progress. She knew this was a form of pampering, but she couldn't help it. At this moment, the teacher said, "It's like this, I held the parent-teacher conference on a weekend afternoon because I'd like to take the opportunity to discuss some matters with everyone." The classroom fell silent. The teacher said, "Yan Liuyuan? Wang Dalong? Are your parents here?" Yan Liuyuan and Xiaoyu looked up at her. The teacher smiled at Xiaoyu and said, "You must be Yan Liuyuan's guardian, right?" Xiaoyu replied with a smile, "Yes, I'm Yan Liuyuan and Wang Dalong's elder sister." "You look really young. Where are their parents? Why aren't they here?" the teacher asked. Xiaoyu was stunned for a moment before saying, "Miss, it's fine, you can speak with me." "All right, look here." The female teacher said, "The parents have recently given us some feedback that Yan Liuyuan and Wang Dalong are not performing as well as the others. Our class is the elite class in school. When the teachers are lecturing, they will definitely add in a lot of knowledge beyond their grade. Since their foundation is quite poor, they can't keep up with the rest of the class." Xiaoyu's mood gradually sank as the teacher went on. She had thought this would be a normal parent-teacher conference. Zhang Wu also said it was just a session for discussing some of the more common issues and that there shouldn't be anything special to it. But things seemed to have turned out a little different from what they had expected. Xiaoyu said, "Miss, what do you mean? My Liuyuan and Dalong are very smart children. How could they possibly not keep up with the class? Please don't misunderstand." The female teacher said with a smile, what I mean is that I would like for them to switch classes. The principals also know about this, and we're doing this for their own good. If they can't keep up with the class, they can't follow the lessons, and that won't be good for them. We want to transfer them to a normal class. There's no other meaning to it, so please don't mind it. What this teacher said was right, and she had also used the same reasoning to persuade the principals about this matter. This was all for the sake of Yan Liuyuan and Wang Dalong, as they really could not keep up with the progress of their class. Yan Liuyuan and Wang Dalong had close ties to Liu Yuan, so the principals did not agree to it at the beginning. But they eventually relented when they could not refuse the constant requests of the rich and influential parents. After all, their reasoning was not wrong. Even though Liu Yuan had entrusted someone to handle the enrollment for Yan Liuyuan and Wang Dalong, that person was not an authoritative figure. After weighing the pros and cons, the principals instructed the homeroom teacher to handle the matter. Xiaohu said firmly to the female teacher, "Although I don't quite understand your arrangements, and maybe the decision that you brought up might turn out to be really good for them, I'm certain of something else. You should discuss matters like this in private with me and not use such a humiliating method to deal with the issue in front of the entire class." Although Xiaohu was not a cultured person, she understood what was reasonable in this world. All of a sudden, a short female parent said, "Why should we talk reason with a refugee like you? My husband is the director of the Public Order Division. Even if I say those two kids are not allowed to attend school, so what? If the director of the Public Order Division were here, he would definitely not speak like this. If he knew these two students were Ren Xiaosu's younger brothers, he might even slap his wife on the spot. But he probably did not know about any of this. In this day and age, which authoritative man cared about trivialities like parent-teacher conferences? On the contrary, his relatives, friends, and wife would only talk like that because they were used to throwing his name around. Such behavior was common everywhere in society. A male parent tried to persuade the female parent, "You can't say things like that either. We should talk things over peacefully and not use authority to oppress people." Meanwhile, the other parents stayed silent. Refused to switch classes. The short female parent stood with her arms on her hips and said, "Do you think you can make that decision? Why don't you ask the parents and students in class if they agree to it or not first? Why should the 30 of us have to accommodate you?" Xiaohu said, "Stand up if you want to talk to me. I'm standing up while you're sitting down. Where are your manners? Is this how stronghold residents behave?" Yan Liuyuan burst out laughing. Wang Dalong looked on from next to him, apparently enjoying the show. The female parent was immediately enraged. Her height had always been her sore spot and she hated anyone who brought it up. Yet now she was being ruthlessly mocked by Xiaohu on it. She raised her voice and said, "What an uncultured thing you are! How dare you speak to me like this? Watch what?" Xiaohu said with a smile, "Watch out in case you jump up and hit my knee." Yan Liuyuan died of laughter. He sat in his seat and looked up at Xiaohu, her thin stature suddenly looming much larger. For the sake of Ren Xiaosu and him, this little woman ended up becoming a housekeeper who did the laundry and cooking for them. Having been used to spending generously without a second thought in the past, she had now become willing to haggle with shopkeepers for a long time just to save a few cents. And now she was acting like a hero as she tried her best to protect Yan Liuyuan from getting hurt. Normally, Yan Liuyuan was actually quite annoyed by Xiaohu. She demanded him to wash his hands before eating and made sure he wore his fall clothing when it got cold. He also had to eat some vegetables he didn't like because Xiaohu said he needed to have a balanced diet. But as he thought back on the past, that was the warmth of family. It seemed that only with Xiaohu around did their family feel complete. If they were without her, this family would lack a kind of warmth. Looking at Xiaohu, the female parent was so irritated she couldn't utter another word. She rushed at Xiaohu and wanted to slap her face. However, Xiaohu dodged in time and slapped her back, knocking off her glasses as well. After slapping her, Xiaoyu did not take the opportunity to hit her again. Instead, she retreated. Some of the parents quickly stood up to stop the fight. The female parent tried again to slap her, but there was no chance to do so anymore. Xiaoyu had gained the upper hand, and it was as though she had expected such a thing to happen. The refugees were much fiercer than the people from the stronghold when they fought. That was regardless of whether they were male or female. Someone suddenly said, "Why don't we hear the children's opinions? See what they have to say about the matter." A child spoke up, "Ever since they arrived, there's been cases of pencils and erasers going missing in class." Xiaoyu was unable to stand it any longer. She started cursing, "Bullshit, whose badly disciplined child is that to cast stones at others? Who doesn't have pencils and erasers? I bought many of them for Liu Yuan, so why would he need to steal yours?" However, that parent who had been slapped exploded into anger again. "How dare you say that about my son? Your mouth is filthy. One look at you and I know you do illicit activities outside the stronghold. The money you earn is dirty too, isn't it?" Yan Liuyuan was stunned. He immediately turned to look at Xiaoyu, but he found that the usually glib Xiaoyu was dumbfounded. That was her most painful emotional scar, and it was suddenly uncovered by someone now. Xiaoyu looked a little confused and helpless. She was like an injured little animal. The darkest and most depressing time of her life was a burden Xiaoyu constantly had to carry around. That was why she always felt like she couldn't integrate into the family. It was not that Yan Liuyuan and Ren Xiaosu did not treat her well, but because she felt she was unworthy of them. Early this morning, Li Xiaoyu thought the world was fresh and exciting. It was like she climbed out of her nightmarish hellscape in the middle of the night and into the world to enjoy the scenery. But now she was dragged into hell once again. When the female parent saw Xiaoyu's reaction, she got smug. "See? Look at her. I wasn't wrong. I was spot on, wasn't I?" Yan Liuyuan looked at her and said, "I'm warning you, don't say anything else." "Why can't I?" The female parent snarled, "How can a promiscuous woman like her be allowed to attend the parent-teacher conference?" Yan Liuyuan roared, "I told you, don't say anything else." Done speaking, Yan Liuyuan broke through the crowd and slapped her face. Many of the people had wanted to stop Yan Liuyuan when they saw him charging. But when Yan Liuyuan collided with them, they realized they could not stop him. The young man was surprisingly strong. The classroom was in complete chaos, and many of the tables were even overturned. But when he was about to kill that woman, Xiaoyu hugged him from behind and said softly, "Liuyuan, let's go home." Yan Liuyuan stood there quietly. Tears suddenly streamed down his cheeks. Xiaoyu said softly again, "Liuyuan, let's go home." "Dalong, let's go." Yan Liuyuan held Xiaoyu's hand and walked out of the front door. He no longer wanted to attend school. Wang Dalong quickly followed closely behind them. Before he left, he even spat at that female parent. Yan Liuyuan hit her so hard she was still in a daze. On their way back, Xiaoyu held Yan Liuyuan's hand tightly in the fear that he would get impulsive and kill someone. She knew that if Yan Liuyuan used the nanomachines and started killing people, the classroom would have turned into a river of blood, and no one could have stopped him. She also held Yan Liuyuan's hand tightly like she was afraid she would lose him. It was as though she were scared Yan Liuyuan would abandon her. But just as they were about to reach home, a car suddenly sped towards them. The driver of the car was so drunk he kept flooring the gas pedal. The pedestrians on the streets cried out in alarm, but the driver paid them no heed and continued accelerating. A vehicle speeding rampantly on the road like that was as good as the Grim Reaper waving his sickle at them. But just as the car was about to hit Yan Liuyuan, he pulled Xiaoyu and Wang Dalong to safety like he already knew beforehand what was going to happen. Xiaoyu stared dumbfoundedly at Yan Liuyuan. "You, curse manipulation was a new world Xiaoyu had personally opened up for Yan Liuyuan. So she knew Yan Liuyuan possessed such a power and also knew he would receive a similar backlash whenever he used it. She asked in a whisper, "Has she died already?" Next to her, Yan Liuyuan said calmly, "She must die. Let's head home right away." Xiaoyu pulled Yan Liuyuan with her. Her feeble little body dragged Yan Liuyuan along in a stubborn yet helpless manner. Xiaoyu did not say anything. She could sense the beast in Yan Liuyuan's heart that had previously been restrained by Ren Xiaosu was about to crawl out and start attacking people. But she did not know how to stop it. She only knew that Yan Liuyuan shouldn't become like that. A moment later, the neon sign hanging above them suddenly crashed down due to a loose screw. Yan Liuyuan once again pulled Xiaoyu and Wang Dalong aside and avoided the accident. Xiaoyu asked softly, "Who was it this time?" "Big sis, don't bother yourself with this," Yan Liuyuan answered. "Can you stop killing people?" Xiaoyu said to Yan Liuyuan. No, Yan Liuyuan shook his head. He thumped his chest. "Something's weighing heavily on my chest, and it makes me very uncomfortable, yet I can't seem to get it off my chest." Xiaoyu suddenly started crying. "Liuyuan, stop it! I'm not worthy for you to do all this for me. Let me bear the responsibility since it was my own fault." Yan Liuyuan looked at her stubbornly. "No, you're worth it." Then Yan Liuyuan reached out and wiped her tears away. "Don't cry. I've already killed her for you, and I'll send her family members to hell with her." Xiaoyu did not know what to do anymore. Without Ren Xiaosu around, there was not a person who could restrain Yan Liuyuan. Seeing Yan Liuyuan's murderous rage getting stronger, Xiaoyu hugged Yan Liuyuan tightly. "Don't you remember what your brother said? Don't let the sorrows of our era become your sorrow as well." Ren Xiaosu's name seemed to have a strange, magical effect on Yan Liuyuan. The words touched a soft spot in Yan Liuyuan. After Xiaoyu said that, Yan Liuyuan finally started to calm down. The wife of the Public Order Division's director was killed in a car accident, and the accident caused quite a stir in the stronghold. Someone even told the director his wife had only dashed out onto the streets because she was looking for someone who had argued with her at school. The director of the Public Order Division flew into a rage in his office and vowed to punish the murderer severely. He even wanted to seek out the student and parent who had hit his wife at school. But before he could conduct a thorough investigation, Yang Yuan summoned him to the Yang Consortium's manor and gave him a dressing down, claiming that he did not discipline his friends, family, and wife properly. Yang Yuan even said that as the director of the Public Order Division, he could not differentiate right from wrong. If he caused any further trouble, he would be removed from his position as the director of the Public Order Division. When Yang Yuan reprimanded him, Yang Yuan spoke pompously. However, the director of the Public Order Division knew there had to be a reason for this. Yang Yuan was definitely not someone who would reprimand him because of justice. This matter must have affected the interests of Yang Yuan. It was only then that he calmed down and recalled what had happened. Then he remembered someone saying it was a refugee who was the cause of the matter. Wait a minute, there weren't that many refugees in the stronghold. There were probably less than 10 refugees who had gotten into the Yang Consortium's stronghold over the years, so it would definitely be easy to find out who it was. However, there was one young refugee who had been enjoying the limelight recently. No, wait. There was also a group of refugees who had come into the stronghold recently. When he finally got someone to investigate the matter and found out the truth, he was shocked to discover the young man who had quarreled with his wife was actually Ren Xiaosu's younger brother. After finding out about this, he immediately understood why Yang Yuan was not on his side this time. However, his first reaction was not to risk his position as director of the Public Order Division, nor was it to take revenge for his wife. He just mentally cursed at her for being such an idiotic woman. Afterwards, he instructed his subordinates to stop investigating the matter. Whatever happened at the school was wholly unrelated to the traffic accident. That stupid woman had brought it upon herself for failing to obey traffic rules, and her death had nothing to do with anyone else. Once the case was concluded, the entire stronghold flew into an uproar. Those who were in the know understood why the director of the Public Order Division had bowed his head in regards to the investigations. As for those who did not know, they thought he had been looking forward to his wife's death and getting a promotion since a long time ago. What surprised everyone most was that the director of the Public Order Division actually headed to Yan Liuyuan and Xiaohu's place to apologize to them. However, Yan Liuyuan kept their door shut and did not have any intentions of meeting him. The principals also came down to their place. However, Wang Fugui was the one who met them to handle Yan Liuyuan's and Wang Dalong's withdrawal from the school. Eventually, everyone in the inner circle caught wind of this matter. So it turned out that the refugee, Ren Xiaosu, was actually a protege of Zhang Jinglin. It was no wonder Ren Xiaosu could recommend Su Xianchu to Stronghold 178. Meanwhile, the bandit extermination group Ren Xiaosu was part of had just arrived at the first stronghold on their journey. Everyone was to use a half-day to do quick repairs and maintenance work here before they continued north. After entering the stronghold, Ren Xiaosu did not do anything other than visit gold shops using his official identity as part of the bandit extermination task force and exchanged his gold for the devalued currencies of the Li Consortium and the Qing Consortium. But as he was in a hurry, he did not manage to trade too much. During this period, Yang Xiaojin also disappeared for a while. It seemed she had gone to meet up with the saboteurs planted spy here. And Zhong Cheng remained behind with the convoy and happily waited for the others to return. He was a polite, talented young man who was confident in himself yet friendly to others. On the way here, he had tried talking to Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin. While Yang Xiaojin couldn't care less, Ren Xiaosu and Zhong Cheng almost became blood brothers, the way they chatted. There were more than 60 people from the Zone Consortium who were traveling with them, and they were split between the two military transport trucks. The Zone Consortium's people were in charge of basic tasks like cooking for the journey. The nano-soldiers portrayed a sense of superiority and only showed a nice attitude to Yang Xiaojin, Ren Xiaosu, and Zhong Cheng. When the normal soldiers talked to them, they would ignore them. Ren Xiaosu found an opportunity to ask Yang Xiaojin, "Hey, why is everyone so interested in Stronghold 178? Is it because they're great at combat?" Yang Xiaojin explained, "In modern warfare, no matter how good you are at combat, you can't fight if you don't have money. There are 4 military factories in the vicinity of Stronghold 178 that are extremely vital. And you might not be aware of it, but there are more than 30 kinds of minerals found in the territory controlled by Stronghold 178. Their grain reserves are ranked first among those in the entire Stronghold system. Some of their mineral reserves are even estimated to be at 90% of all reserves." Yang Xiaojin continued, "Besides, the exploitable oil reserves there amount to as much as 40% of what the entire Stronghold system has access to. Modern development is dependent on mineral and energy sources, so these things are all indispensable." Ren Xiaosu was shocked. He had thought Stronghold 178 was extremely poor. After all, that place was located in such a harsh environment, so it sounded like it would be a very poor area. He had not expected Stronghold 178 to be so rich. Come to think of it, you could not win a modern battle with just courage alone. Fighting a war was all about money, and the reason Stronghold 178 could still stand intact in the northwest without having any close ties to the other organizations was not because they were asocial or conceited but because they were blessed with mines in their backyard. More importantly, Zhang Jinglin had once refused to be the commander of Stronghold 178 even though they were so rich. Was he being melodramatic or what? Ren Xiaosu started judging Zhang Jinglin. When they arrived at the second stronghold to do repairs and maintenance, Yang Xiaojin disappeared off to somewhere again. Meanwhile, Ren Xiaosu traded some more gold for money before returning to the assembly place in advance. When he got back, Yang Xiaojin hadn't returned yet. Zhong Cheng was laughing and chatting with the Yang Consortium's nano-soldiers. His own soldiers had brought over some folding chairs for the nano-soldiers and even provided them with some specialties from the north as snacks. It seemed that Zhong Cheng was highly interested in these nano-soldiers and was willing to interact with them. No matter how arrogant the nano-soldiers might be, they would still not put on any airs in front of an important figure from the Zone Consortium and conversed quite happily with him. When Ren Xiaosu returned, he did not approach them immediately. Instead, he observed them from afar. It looked like Zhong Cheng was performing some magic tricks for them. Zhong Cheng asked one of the nano-soldiers while holding a water bottle in his hand, "What do you usually like to drink?" The nano-soldier smiled and said, "You're too polite. I'll just have some water." "Okay," Zhong Cheng said as he tilted the bottle slightly and poured some clear liquid out of it. Zhong Cheng turned to look at another soldier. "What do you like to drink? Say something different this time." "I like grape juice," the nano-soldier said. "All right." Zhong Cheng was still holding the same bottle in his hand, but the previously clear liquid was no longer there. This time, he poured some purple grape juice out. The nano-soldiers exclaimed, "There must be a mechanism in the bottle, right? Come here, you can inspect it for yourself." Zhong Cheng handed the bottle to one of the nano-soldiers. The nano-soldier looked into the bottle and found no mechanisms inside. Then Zhong Cheng turned around and saw Ren Xiaosu. "Brother Xiaosu, why are you watching from there? Come and sit with us for a while. We'll set off when Yang Xiaojin gets back." Ren Xiaosu walked over and said with a smile, "Can you do card tricks? That's something every magician has to learn." Zhong Cheng took out a deck of playing cards from his breast pocket and asked, "What kinda trick would you like to see?" Ren Xiaosu suddenly sensed that something was not right. Why would a core figure of an organization be obsessed with magic tricks? He had heard Zhong Cheng was a supernatural being, so could his superpower be related to magic? Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "Why don't you conjure up 4 fours for me? That's simple." Zhong Cheng said confidently, "Pick out any 4 cards as you like." He fanned the cards out face down so that no one could see what the cards were. Ren Xiaosu reached out and picked the cards. These were cards used for magic, and he happened to have similar cards. "Wow, they really are 4 fours, Ren Xiaosu said in surprise as he looked at the cards in his hands. "Brother Zhong Cheng is truly amazing." Then Ren Xiaosu returned the cards to him. Zhong Cheng was stunned. He felt like something was off but could not tell what it was exactly. "Please don't say that. It was no big deal." Zhong Cheng smiled as he put the cards back into the box and then stuffed it into the inside pocket of his jacket. Then Zhong Cheng said with a warm smile, "By the way, Brother Xiaosu, I just heard about something. Are you very close with Su Xianchu?" Ren Xiaosu looked at him and said with a smile, "I guess. I was mainly trying to recommend talented people to my teacher." He knew what Zhong Cheng was getting at, but Ren Xiaosu would also not let slip any opportunity to increase his own amulets. Zhong Cheng's smile remained. "I'm also very familiar with Brother Su. It seems like we were fated to meet. But if I could ask, your teacher is Zhang Jinglin?" Ren Xiaosu whispered, "Usually, I don't tell a secret like that to anyone. It's better to keep a low profile." Zhong Cheng's eyes twitched. "You're still calling this a secret? The entire Yang Consortium already knows about it. Even he had already received news of it." At first, he was still a little skeptical and had to check with the other party again to confirm if it was true. As a result, that person said everyone in Stronghold 88 already knew about it, and that Ren Xiaosu's younger brother had made the director of the Public Order Division eat humble pie. Before setting off on the expedition, Zhong Cheng had realized there was something strange about Yang Yuan's attitude. So this was the reason for it. After confirming the truth, Zhong Cheng's smile for Ren Xiaosu became even more sincere. At the beginning, he would occasionally talk to Yang Xiaojin. But now it was like he did not even know Yang Xiaojin anymore, even though they were traveling together. He never said another word to her again, and the way he addressed her had changed from Xiaojin to Yang Xiaojin. This was completely different from his original plan in which he was the leader of this attack to exterminate bandits. It was not that he was afraid of Ren Xiaosu. Because the Yang Consortium was so bold as to detain Luolan despite both sides being equally powerful, it demonstrated the Yang Consortium was not necessarily afraid of the Qing Consortium. It was the same for the Zone Consortium when they faced Stronghold 178. After operating in the north for so many years, they had become a force to be reckoned with. However, he felt that he should be more ambitious as a man rather than creating unnecessary trouble over a minor issue like romance. The Zone Consortium had endured for so long in the impoverished northern wastes, yet everyone claimed they were hyenas and even refused to acknowledge them as a consortium. Now that the South was at war, it was the best opportunity for the Zone Consortium to rise up. He could not screw this up. Before setting off again, Ren Xiaosu sat in the passenger seat of the off-road vehicle and asked, "Can you let me drive for a while?" Yang Xiaojin looked at him in surprise. "Why do you want to drive all of a sudden? Do you know how to drive?" "Of course." Ren Xiaosu said confidently, "How can a man not know how to drive?" "All right then." Yang Xiaojin stopped the vehicle and changed seats with him. Ren Xiaosu excitedly stepped on the accelerator. But after driving for 10 minutes, Yang Xiaojin took out her pistol and pointed it at Ren Xiaosu. "Stop the vehicle, I'm driving." Ren Xiaosu reluctantly stopped the vehicle. "Let's talk nicely. Why do you have to point a gun at me?" Yang Xiaojin rubbed her temple and changed the topic. "After we leave the stronghold, north of that is the valley. When the time comes, I'll shake off Zhongcheng and the nano-soldiers so that we can act on our own." Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. "Aren't we going to exterminate the bandits? How are we going to exterminate the bandits with just the two of us? You probably don't know how serious the banditry to the north is." Yang Xiaojin explained, "There are already hundreds of large bandit gangs living there, with the smallest groups with members numbering in the double digits. They're all threats the Zone Consortium created over the years. There's that many of them." Ren Xiaosu was surprised to find out there were hundreds of bands of bandits. "So we won't be their match if we encounter a larger gang of bandits with only the 100 of us," Yang Xiaojin said. So that area eventually became a gathering place for the bandits since no one could do anything about it. Ren Xiaosu asked. "No wonder the three organizations are conducting this operation together at the mention of exterminating bandits. Even Su Xianchu had to specially make a trip to the Yang Consortium. Yes, some large bandit gangs even settled down over there and turned to stealing women from the refugees to keep them company." Yang Xiaojin said, "If there's a need to deploy troops there to exterminate the bandits, the three organizations have to work together. Since everyone wants to kill the bandits, the mission must be carried out no matter what. Everyone should have just sent their troops together then," Ren Xiaosu said in a speechless manner. "What's the point of sending us there? It's extremely easy for the bandits to hide in the valley because of the complex and peculiar terrain." Yang Xiaojin said, "So someone has to first get a better understanding of the bandit situation in the entire valley and find out where they're located to assess if there's a chance of killing them in one fell swoop before making further plans." With that, Ren Xiaosu understood they were just going there to scout the path and did not have to participate in any battles. He and Yang Xiaojin weren't even a part of this plan at the beginning. The primary mission was supposed to be conducted by the 30 nano-soldiers along with the Zone Consortium soldiers. If the troops were deployed directly into the valley, many of the bandits might go into hiding or run away. Furthermore, it would be very easy for the three organizations to fight each other. When you say that you want to shake them off, it's mainly Zhongcheng that you want to shake off, right? Ren Xiaosu probed. Yes. Yang Xiaojin nodded and said, as the Zone Consortium is more familiar with the valley, they suggested they should lead the way this time. However, the banditry issue originated from them, and many of the bandit gangs have ties with them as well. If they lead the way, we can only see what they want us to see. In any case, they would have to avoid the zone consortium and not get led by the nose. Ren Xiaosu did not have any problems with that. Honestly, Yang Xiaojun was a daredevil. How could a normal person barge into a bandit's lair just like that? Ren Xiaosu asked, "Aren't you worried that something will happen along the way?" Yang Xiaojun glanced at him. "Don't I have you to protect me?" Then she stomped on the gas at an intersection. When they exited the stronghold, Yang Xiaojun deliberately drove to the rear of the convoy. By now, the convoy in front of her had turned down a side road. So when Yang Xiaojun suddenly took the other route and drove west, the vehicles ahead of her could not react in time. By the time they realized the off-road vehicle driven by Yang Xiaojun had deterred, it was too late for them to turn around. They could only stop their vehicles and watch Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun drive all the way northwest, leaving a huge trail of dust behind them. The southern wilderness was filled with lush greenery. But in just the short distance spanning two strongholds, the landscape had suddenly changed from a lush green to a cocky land filled with sand mounds. From here to the north, it would be hard to see an entire forest again. The remaining vegetation that could be seen were squat shrubs, and when severe soil erosion had happened here before the cataclysm, and desertification was already an unstoppable trend back then and could only have been prevented by putting in a great deal of manpower, logistics, and funding into its reversal. But with the advent of the cataclysm, the lands became completely deserted. Zhong Cheng had a calm expression as he stood outside the vehicle and looked at the off-road vehicle departing west. One of the nano-soldiers on the ground asked, "Platoon commander, what do we do now?" The platoon commander gave it some thought and said, "We'll continue with the original plan and carry out our mission." Yang Xiaojun and Ren Xiaosu were not included in their original mission plans to head deep into the northern valley. So even though Yang Xiaojun had just left, it did not fluster them. Zhong Cheng looked at the nano-soldiers and said with a smile, "They might have a more important mission to conduct. But that's all right. I hope that we can happily work together in the coming days." Based on the established plan, Yang Xiaojun and Ren Xiaosu should have followed the convoy east where they would pass by the front lines at Mt Shangying, Mt Lianta, and Mt Dingyuan before proceeding to the core of the valley. But with Yang Xiaojun's detour, she would have to pass through Mt Daban, Mt Tangwang, and Mt Guan before meeting up with the rest of the convoy again. She had already planned for this as she wanted to see for herself what the banditry situation in the valley was really like. After driving for a short while, they abandoned their vehicle and walked on foot. Although this would slow their progress, they would not be easily identified as members of an organization. Yang Xiaojun had even prepared specific rags just so it would make them look like refugees who had escaped from a Yang Consortium factory. Yang Xiaojun said, "Actually, there's still many small human settlements in the valley. They're all refugees who can't stand the exploitation of the consortiums and have fled here to farm near a water source. Aren't they afraid of the bandits?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "The bandits deliberately left quite a few refugees alone in the valley and won't harm them." Yang Xiaojun said, "I wonder who gave them the idea, though. Whenever an organization conducts an operation to exterminate them, if there isn't enough time for them to go into hiding, they'll simply stash their weapons and escape to the refugee settlements where they pretend to be refugees who live there as well." Ren Xiaosu was surprised by her answer. "What's the point of doing that? To the organizations, people are also a kind of resource." Yang Xiaojun said, "When the Yang Consortium first started their operations to exterminate the bandits, they would escort any refugees back to the strongholds town if they came across them and make them work at the factories to continue creating value. But after about a year, the bandits who had impersonated refugees would abduct some of the refugees and head back to the valley. It isn't easy for the bandits either, hey." Ren Xiaosu sighed. "I suspect there's someone behind the scenes advising them," Yang Xiaojun said. "Or it could be their own smarts," Ren Xiaosu said as he stood atop a mound. "I'm not saying the bandits are stupid, but someone powerful must be backing them." Yang Xiaojun said, "Some years ago, the ruins of the Cataclysm civilization were cleared out. With nothing much left to scavenge, and the merchants too afraid to come by, what did they survive on in recent years? We also found out these bandits often acquire brand new weapons and motorcycles. Some of the bandit gangs are even quite up to date with the latest news. If you tell me they don't have some sort of corporation backing them, I'd refuse to believe it. Ren Xiaosu had been confused. But when Yang Xiaojun mentioned the word rat, he suddenly thought of Luolan for some reason. Although there was an extreme difference in their body size, they had one thing in common, and that was how they loved scuttling around in the sewers. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu felt he could guess who was supporting the bandits to gross the Zone Consortium out. If it was really as he had guessed, Qing Zhen and Luolan's foresight would be much greater than the Yang Consortium's. After all, the Yang Consortium had only thought of forming an alliance with the Zone Consortium in the past 1 or 2 years, while the bandits had been troubling the Zone Consortium for 5 to 6 years. If it were really Qing Zhen and Luolan who were behind this, just how scheming would they have to be? What were they really after? Of course, Ren Xiaosu was unaware of the entire story behind the change in leadership at the Qing Consortium, nor did he know how long Qing Zhen had been planning for it. And now, it seemed like the Zone Consortium truly had a problem with the bandits. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sought the Yang Consortium and Stronghold 178's help. After all, they were the ones who developed the bandits at the beginning, but the issue got out of control in the end. If the problem were leaked, wouldn't they become the butt of the joke? Ren Xiaosu shared his assumptions with Yang Xiaojun. I think it's the Qing Consortium who's secretly helping them. It doesn't really matter. Yang Xiaojun shook her head and said, it doesn't really have anything to do with me. Your relationship with the Yang Consortium. Ren Xiaosu hesitated for a moment but did not ask further. You don't need to be apprehensive. Yang Xiaojun said, the Yang Consortium is starting to decline, and family ties are something that's become dispensable. Let's head to Mt Daban now. There's some small bandit lairs and refugee settlements congregated there. Are you familiar with this region? Ren Xiaosu asked. I'm pretty familiar with the outer perimeter of the valley. Yang Xiaojun said, I came by here frequently some years back. Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. What were you doing here? I came to practice shooting, Yang Xiaojun answered. Ren Xiaosu realized Yang Xiaojun had actually used the bandits out here in the wilderness for target practice. It was no wonder Ren Xiaosu felt like Yang Xiaojun was sometimes very similar to him. They were like the grass that grew in the wilderness. Would you like to learn? Yang Xiaojun looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, I can teach you. Ren Xiaosu's eyes twitched. My marksmanship is also quite good. I don't know what kind of power you have that you can actually learn the skills of others directly, Yang Xiaojun said, but you didn't manage to learn it completely, right? Your breathing technique is wrong. Ren Xiaosu smiled. As expected of someone with perfect firearms proficiency, she immediately noticed his shortcomings at a single glance. Although he had managed to copy her proficiency, there had to be a huge gap in proficiency between the advanced firearms proficiency and perfect firearms proficiency. He stopped acting unreasonable. How do you plan to teach me? I'll teach you through actual combat, Yang Xiaojun said calmly. Ren Xiaosu muttered, and I was thinking you would place your hand on mine to teach me. What? As Ren Xiaosu's voice was too soft, Yang Xiaojun could not hear him. Ren Xiaosu said, nothing. Yang Xiaojun looked at him and asked, how should I make myself look more like a refugee? You've asked the right person. You can't wear this cap anymore. Ren Xiaosu said, what refugee wears a cap? Yang Xiaojun decisively took off her cap. Ren Xiaosu was stunned as he rarely saw her without her cap. And then? Yang Xiaojun asked. Ren Xiaosu examined her and said, your hair is too neat, but you don't have to make it too untidy. You can just leave it slightly disheveled. Although her clothes seemed rather refugee-like, some details were still quite different upon closer inspection. As refugees tended to cut their own hair, everyone's hairstyle was always unkempt. But after he finished saying that, he saw Yang Xiaojun take out a dagger from her sleeve and cut off her hair without hesitation. After that, she ruffled it a little. Yang Xiaojun originally had a chin-length bob that was neat and tidy. But after she cut it off with the dagger, her hair became disheveled. Although she would return to her original appearance in another month or two, Ren Xiaosu was surprised by how Yang Xiaojun did not care about her image just so that she could look more like a refugee. He knew that some girls in the stronghold cherished their hair as much as their lives. This Yang Xiaojun was really willing to go all out to get things done. Yang Xiaojun gave a few slight shakes of her head and said, "What about now? Do I look more like one now?" That's more like it." Ren Xiaosu held in his laughter and said, "Your face still looks a little clean, as well as the lining of your clothes. But never mind that. Based on what you said earlier, it will still take us another day before we arrive at Mt Daban. After we travel in the dusty wilderness for a day, we won't be clean anymore." "Okay." Yang Xiaojun nodded. "Let's come up with a narrative first. I don't want us to blow our cover when we find a human settlement and someone asks us about our relationship. How old are you?" It seemed like this was the first time the two of them were asking each other the more personal questions. They had never discussed these matters before. Back at the Jing Mountains, they talked about what might lie in the mountains. When they were at Stronghold 109, they talked about the Li Consortium's breakthrough in their research. These days, they discussed the banditry that was going on in the valley. Somehow, they had never really gotten to know each other. It was as though they were not too worried about that. Ren Xiaosu vaguely remembered that Yang Xiaojun should be 18, while he was 17. If he told the truth, he would probably have to address her as big sister, and that would be quite unfortunate for him. Ren Xiaosu gave it some consideration. "I'm 20 this year." Yang Xiaojun nodded. "Well, I'm 21, so you can just call me Big Sis. Don't have a slip of tongue when we encounter other people." Ren Xiaosu was speechless. Wasn't she fucking lying through her teeth? In the past, Ren Xiaosu was always the one who tricked others, so how did he end up getting tricked by someone else today? "You're 21. Ren Xiaosu said unconvinced. "Take out your ID card and let me have a look." "I lost it." Yang Xiaojun said nonchalantly, "Enough, you don't have to mind those details. You were the one who lied first." Ren Xiaosu could only take the loss silently. Even as the two of them advanced northwest, he was still thinking about how to get back at her. In the vast wilderness, the two of them were two tiny black dots, and the hills on the land were waves rolling across the ground. During the evening, their shadows were stretched extremely long on the ground. The sparse clouds above their heads also extended all the way into the distance and connected with the ground. At night, the sea of stars in the sky was so dense that they looked like they could be touched with an outstretched arm. Yang Xiaojun said while hurrying along, "I'm hungry." Ren Xiaosu echoed, "Me too." "That's not what I wanted to hear." "Hey, why didn't you bring any food with you? I'm a refugee now. How can a refugee have any food?" Yang Xiaojun justified. "And with you following me, there isn't a need to bring any food either." Yang Xiaojun said to Ren Xiaosu, who was also prone next to her, "In our training, your sense of balance and the steadiness of your advanced neural activities determine your ceiling from the day you're born. These terms might not match the scientific expressions used in biology, but we're used to calling them that. It's not just talent alone, thought. There's also your personality, which is difficult to foster and change." Yang Xiaojun said, "In a personality assessment, there are 16 possible types based on the assessment of a set of judgment criteria. The first criterion is introversion and extroversion. On a scale of 0 to 10 for snipers, 0 represents introversion and indecisiveness, while 10 represents risk-taking and bravery. For a sniper, one should have a score between 5 and 8, inclusive, with the most ideal score being 8. Ren Xiaosu asked, what's your score? 8, Yang Xiaojun answered. In fact, her answer was what Ren Xiaosu expected. Since she had perfect firearms proficiency, she should be perfect in every aspect. If there were any flaws, it wouldn't be called perfect. Let's talk about the training method we'll employ for the day after tomorrow. Yang Xiaojun said, you'll have to keep your body steady and learn how to breathe evenly. All of that is done to ensure that when you finally pull the trigger, the bullet hits where you want it to. In that moment, all of the hormones secreted by your body should be at the bullet's service. All of this can only be achieved with a long period of training. There's also biofeedback 1 training to go through. When a sniper encounters a situation, they can't have their heart start racing and start sweating profusely like a normal person would, Yang Xiaojun said. Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. How do you train that? It goes against your instincts, doesn't it? It was no wonder Yang Xiaojun felt a little aloof. Upon careful observation, it was a calmness behind the powerful self-control that allowed her to completely restrain her instincts. It was just like how she had covered Ren Xiaosu from the top of that building. Seeing the experimentals about to get to her, she could still continue calmly pulling the trigger and only left at the last possible moment. Luo Xinyu was scared to death on that day as she thought she would not get Yang Xiaojun out of there. Yang Xiaojun said, there's some methods to train your biofeedback. For example, one of my old training routines was to immerse my arms into 2 buckets, with one containing cold water and the other hot water. After training to a certain extent, I can even increase the temperature in just one hand by 2 degrees through mental suggestion. Ren Xiaosu said in surprise, you can even do that? Can you do it now? Let me touch your hands. Yang Xiaojun rolled her eyes at him. The purpose of this training is not to control the temperature of your hands, but to let the sniper master their instincts. When they want to take a deep breath, their heart rate will immediately slow down. Ren Xiaosu realized the difference in their sniping level was not just a small amount. Yang Xiaojun's success was only achieved after she put in many years of effort. How could it possibly be duplicated with just a basic skill duplication scroll? It was no wonder that even the perfect skill duplication scroll could only copy up to master level skills. You had to put in a lot more effort if you wanted to break past your limit and achieve perfection. Of course, his skill to annoy people was an exception. It seemed he was born with it and did not require any training. Curious, Ren Xiaosu asked, how did a girl like you get into firearms? I like them. Yang Xiaojun said, they have a power I can use to protect myself with. Yang Xiaojun's words made Ren Xiaosu realize that only those who lacked a sense of security would seek strength to protect themselves with. Was it tough? Ren Xiaosu said with a sigh. It'd be a lie if I said it wasn't tough. Yang Xiaojun said, but I enjoy it as well. Why did you come out into the wilderness to practice your marksmanship? Ren Xiaosu said. For desensitization training. Yang Xiaojun explained, it's so I would not be affected mentally after seeing corpses, blood, and death. Ren Xiaosu stared blankly at Yang Xiaojun and wondered what this girl had been through. Yang Xiaojun wondered, we've already been waiting for a day now. Why aren't any bandits passing by yet? This used to be a necessary route for bandits to take. They had been lying here in wait for the entire day. On one hand, Yang Xiaojun wanted to see if Ren Xiaosu possessed the right qualities to be a sniper. On the other hand, they could observe the movements of the bandits from here. As a result, Yang Xiaojun realized Ren Xiaosu seemed to have as high an endurance as her. Although they had been lying in the bushes for more than 8 hours, Ren Xiaosu did not even change his posture once. But what surprised Yang Xiaojun most was that even though Ren Xiaosu did not change his posture or even move a little, she could clearly feel him tightening and relaxing his muscles all the while. This was to help his blood circulation so that his muscles would always remain in a relaxed state. Yang Xiaojun had no doubt that if danger appeared, Ren Xiaosu, who had been lying here motionlessly all day, could quickly engage in a high-intensity battle. She wondered how this young man had trained himself to such a state. She slowly got up from the ground. Let's go. Something might have happened to the bandit lairs around here. Let's go and check them out. Then Yang Xiaojun walked off in the direction she remembered. An hour later, she stood in a mountain gap and frowned as she looked at the white skeletal remains there. They were surrounded by mud shelters too that had been dug out by the bandits. Wooden tables, chairs, and benches were placed inside of them, but they were discolored and covered in a solidified layer of black matter. Black matter was what blood would become after being left out to dry for a long time. Someone ransacked this place. Yang Xiaojun said, I wonder who did it. There are bullets and empty shells lying around on the ground, while the firearms and motorcycles have all been taken away. When Ren Xiaosu looked at the skeletons on the ground, he noticed some teeth marks on them, suggesting that wild animals had been here as well. Are there any women in the bandit lairs? Most of them have some. The bandits head into the towns or factories and abduct some of the women back, Yang Xiaojun said. There's no skeletons of women or children in here, Ren Xiaosu said. This place must have been plundered by other bandits. Strange. Why would anyone target such a poor group of bandits? Yang Xiaojun said, it seems the valley is no longer as peaceful, and something must have happened within the circle of bandits. They didn't kill each other in the past because the people funding them had always maintained a certain kind of balance from behind the scenes. Someone is trying to consolidate the valley bandits? Is that even possible? Ren Xiaosu asked. It's possible, but we still have to head to the other hideouts and investigate them before we can be sure of it, Yang Xiaojun replied. Let's go, there's nothing more to see here. The two of them continued going northwest. Mt. Daban was right in front of them now. Based on Yang Xiaojun's memory, they would come across the first small human settlement there. One biofeedback is the process of gaining greater awareness of many physiological functions of one's own body, commercially by using electronic or other instruments, and with a goal of being able to manipulate the body's systems at will. https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/biofeedback2a Yaodong, Chinese, a, pinyin, Yaodong, or house cave is a particular form of earth-sheltered dwelling common in the Loess Plateau in China's north. https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/Yaodong. A sniper had to be decisive whenever an opportunity arose. Boom! Ren Xiaosu pulled the trigger at the hawk soaring high in the sky. The sniper rifle's heavy recoil and burst of gas from the muzzle swept a large cloud of dust and smoke up off the sandy ground around him. This was Yang Xiaojun's sniper rifle she had materialized from thin air to lend to Ren Xiaosu. Today was Ren Xiaosu's real combat training day, and he was supposed to shoot a hawk out of the sky. But right from the start, Yang Xiaojun wanted him to hit the hawk's head, which was the highest degree of difficulty. After he fired at it once, the hawk was unscathed and flew away after getting frightened by the gunshot. Yang Xiaojun smirked. So do you still think your marksmanship is quite good? Ren Xiaosu pretended to be puzzled. I clearly shot it in the head, so how did it escape unharmed? Could it possibly be a mutant? Oh, come on! Yang Xiaojun curled her lips. It's still a hawk no matter how much it mutated. Since it's not a product of genetic modification done by the Pyro Company, it can't survive a sniper's bullet. You said you hit it in the head, so why was it unharmed? Ren Xiaosu pondered the question. Maybe because its head is empty and the bullet went right through. Ha, ha! Yang Xiaojun put away her sniper rifle. We can't do any more shooting if we advance further. The sniper rifle is too loud and will attract the attention of the bandits. Ren Xiaosu nodded. In the past 2 days, he had learned a lot of advanced knowledge about firearms, but he still needed much more practical experience. He had already delayed the journey by a day due to his target practice, but Yang Xiaojun did not seem anxious or in a rush at all. She patiently accompanied him to practice his shooting, but right now, the mission to exterminate the bandits was obviously more important, and he was not in a hurry to practice his shooting at this time either. If we encounter the refugee settlement, will they welcome us? Ren Xiaosu asked. They probably won't, but it's also not to the extent of ostracizing us. Yang Xiaojun said, everyone depends on a water source for farming and will grow their own crops. A lot of refugees who have just escaped here won't have any food on them. They will use the money they saved up while working in the factories to purchase some food and seeds from the others. After all, it will take quite a while for the crops to grow. This is something the refugees at the settlement will want to see. Furthermore, new refugees will also bring news of the outside world with them. It's really strange that we never encountered any bandits along the way. Ren Xiaosu frowned. If they could not see any bandits in a place infested with bandits, it would be similar to not seeing any fish in the sea. Something strange must have happened out in this valley. After crossing a hill, Yang Xiaojun suddenly pointed ahead and said, "Look over there." There was a stream meandering across the land in front of her. Many refugees were digging ditches by the stream to get ready to irrigate the crops before spring arrived. When the refugees saw Yang Xiaojun and Ren Xiaosu dressed in refugee attire, they were relieved. The people here were very smart and could tell at a glance whether these were stronghold residents in disguise or not. It all depended on the details Ren Xiaosu had mentioned. When Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun approached them, an older woman wiped away her sweat and spoke before they could say anything, "Do you want to buy some sorghum seeds? You're just in time for the spring sowing season." "Yes." Ren Xiaosu took out a bag wrapped in cloth and flipped through several layers before he found some loose coins. When the refugees saw this, they were even more relieved. Could important people from the strongholds possibly act as natural refugees? But still others worried. "Where did the two of you escape from?" Ren Xiaosu railed, "From the coal mine. They promised to pay us 21 yuan for every ton of coal carried, but then suddenly reduced it to 20 yuan and 60 cents. Furthermore, they even wanted to deduct some fees to cover the material cost. They were totally inhumane." One of the refugees laughed. "That's even worse than the time when I worked at the coal mine." But at this moment, an older woman said, "But it's not the right time for you and your wife to escape." Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun were both stunned. They had schemed against each other over who would be older, and it ended with Ren Xiaosu grumpily accepting that he would be the younger brother while Yang Xiaojun was to be his elder sister. But after all that discussion, their relationship suddenly changed the moment they got here. Refugees tend to get married and have children at a very young age. When the children grew up, they could help out at home with some of the work. That was the mindset of the refugees. So while they might look too young to be a couple in the stronghold, they were just the right age for marriage out here. Furthermore, no one would flee together if they were not a couple these days. If either one told on the other, the person who reported it would get rewarded. This caught the two of them off guard. Ren Xiaosu stole a glance at Yang Xiaojun and wondered how she would react. If Yang Xiaojun insisted on clearing it up and arousing the suspicions of the refugees, they would have to retreat from this place. In any case, it shouldn't be much of a problem for them to find another way into the valley. However, Yang Xiaojun just smiled and did not explain their relationship. She chose to quietly accept it. She asked, "Why is it not the right time for us to come out here? Could something have happened?" "Let me tell you, the state of the bandits in the north is chaos right now, and many people have been killed in this period." The older woman said earnestly, "We're panicking and nervous at the moment and wonder if all that will affect us as well." "What's wrong with the bandits?" Ren Xiaosu asked, "Why would they do anything to us when we're only farmers? I heard there's 3 gangs in the north that dislike each other. They're trying to unify the bandit gangs in the valley regardless of size. 2 of the gangs are especially fierce, and there's apparently a superhuman among them as well. If they bump into anyone who goes against them, they kill them immediately." The older woman explained, "Let's come to an agreement beforehand. It's not a problem for you and your wife to stay here. We can always farm together. But if the bandits come and ask if we'll submit to them, all of us will have to agree to it. We can't go against them. Okay. Ren Xiaosu responded, but what if another gang comes after that gang leaves? The older woman waved it off. It doesn't matter. We'll submit to whoever comes as long as they let us farm here. This was the refugees' law of survival, given and don't cause trouble. The bandits could fight among themselves all they wanted, and the refugees would submit to whoever came. In any case, the bandits no longer eyed their seeds and crops. For some reason, even though they did not have anyone left to steal from, the bandits were somehow getting richer, and their equipment and weapons were also getting better. Last year, the Zone Consortium's combat troops had entered the valley but left with their heads hanging after getting beaten by a few bands of bandits. How could ordinary bandits be capable of that? If they could fucking defeat the regular combat troops, could they still be called bandits? The area the refugees chose to settle was relatively flat and suitable for planting crops. Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun had planned on staying here with the refugees for some time to get a better understanding of the banditry in the region. As they were talking, a cloud of dust suddenly emerged in the distance. From afar, it could even be mistaken as a small sandstorm. An older woman said nervously, "Why are they here again? Which group is it this time?" Ren Xiaosu asked, "Are those the bandits?" "Definitely. That dust cloud is made by the motorcycles they ride." As the older woman spoke, she ran towards the mud shelters and shouted, "Take the children back into the houses." But the bandits in the distance were rapidly approaching. Everyone could already see their figures. The motorcycles they were riding were like taut and muscular beasts, while the rumbling of the engines and exhaust sounded like their roars. This was an especially rough and savage sight to behold. Even from afar, the refugees could hear the excited cries of the bandits. When they saw the refugees, it was as though they had spotted their prey. Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun looked at each other and blended in with the refugee group. They wanted to observe the situation first. The refugees seemed to already have experience in dealing with such situations. After hiding their children away, they stood in line on the flat ground as though they were about to welcome their superiors. The only difference was that their line was rather crooked, and everyone in the group had starkly different moods. Ren Xiaosu did a count and found slightly more than 20 bandits in this band. A group of this size would not be considered a very powerful force in this valley. However, he did not know how many other members they had back at their lair. The gang of bandits rode their motorcycles and circled around the refugees while roaring. This was a show of force by the bandits. Round after round, the circle became smaller, and the refugees cowered together in fear. When the refugees became visibly scared, the bandits slowly came to a stop. One of them jumped off his motorcycle and pulled down the scarf covering his mouth. "You people are farming here?" "Yes, that's right." One of the refugees said in fear, "We've been farming here for several years already." "What's so interesting about farming?" the bandit said as he spat out the sand in his mouth onto the ground. Then he smiled and said, "I see quite a few men here. Men are born to do lofty deeds. How can you call yourselves men when you're cowering here and farming every day? But what are we gonna eat if we don't farm?" The refugee said meekly, "We only want to grow some crops to feed ourselves with. From today onwards, all of you will become my subjects." Patting the face of the refugee in front of him, the bandit boss said, "Follow me and you'll have meat to eat and wine to drink. In the past, the consortiums bullied you. Join me and we'll go bully them in the future." Ren Xiaosu observed these people and thought about what Yang Xiaojun had said. There was an 80% chance their motorcycles were new, while the automatic weapons in their hands were even newer than the motorcycles. It was obvious they had just changed their equipment. Even more ridiculous was how many of these people were carrying 2 guns on their backs. It was as if they had too many guns and nowhere to use them. Perhaps the new equipment had given additional confidence to these bandits. With only a few more than 20 people, they even boasted about bullying the consortiums. When the refugees heard these people were going to declare war against the consortiums, they became even more afraid. We don't want to fight the consortiums. We only know how to farm. The bandit boss's face sank. You have to fight even if you don't want to fight. Gentlemen, round them up and bring them back. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. So it turned out they were here to abduct them. They were probably doing so because they had too many guns, more than the people in their group. So they knew they had to expand. This had to have something to do with the bandits' civil strife that was going on in the north. The entire valley was in a state of chaos as everyone started deviating from the rules. Are we gonna go with them? Ren Xiaosu asked in a low voice. We should. Yang Xiaojun replied, we might get to understand more about the situation in the valley this way. Besides, they only have about 20 people. If we really want to leave, they won't be able to stop us. Well, why don't we just eliminate them here? Ren Xiaosu mumbled. With so many guns pointed at them, the refugees had no choice but to return to the mud shelters to take their children with them. Then they started being escorted north. The bandit boss was riding a motorcycle next to the group of refugees. With the motorcycle's engine rumbling noisily, he shouted proudly, "Don't you people think that I, Jin Lan, am a tyrant? It's just that you were living in the outermost region of the valley, so you might not know about the situation in these lands. The people in the northern settlements have already been abducted by the other groups from the other mountain places. Even if we don't take you away today, others would come for you tomorrow. But we don't know how to fight," the refugees said in distress. Who doesn't know how to fight? I'll give y'all guns, and don't worry about saving ammo. Just shoot. Besides, even if you don't want to fight, you can contribute in other ways. Jin Lan laughed heartily. Nobody knew what these other ways Jin Lan mentioned were, but what he said was enough to confirm Ren Xiaosu's suspicions. It looked like they had really captured all these people because they had an excess of guns and ammunition. However, Ren Xiaosu wondered how many firearms Qing Zhen and his people had invested in this area. Why did it seem like the entire valley was chaos? If this went on, a lot of people in the valley would die. The big fish devours the little fish, the strong prey on the weak. This had always been the case since ancient times. And when the war subsided, an even more powerful bandit organization could rise up after all the bandit gangs in the valley had been unified. Was that Qing Zhen's goal? To use a massacre to clear away the tainted impurities in the valley and achieve the goal of consolidating all the bandits who were active here? After that, would he take control of this force for his own gain? And all he had to do was invest some guns and ammunition to make these bandits get conceited. Although automatic rifles were a favorite among the bandits, the consortiums knew well that these guns and ammunition were worth close to nothing. Although he had no evidence, Ren Xiaosu was certain that Qing Zhen was behind all this. No one else would do something like it. Moreover, Ren Xiaosu was also certain that Qing Zhen still had subsequent plans for the valley, and that would be the power he would eventually use to complete the consolidation of the bandits here. At this moment, because the Yang Consortium was at war with the Li Consortium in the south, their defenses in the north were virtually empty. They would have, at most, an independent force garrisoning each of their strongholds. If this bandit army attacks south, they would definitely not be able to bring down the strongholds. However, they could easily destroy all the factories outside the strongholds, and that could set the Yang Consortium's economy back by 3 years. Meanwhile, the Yang Consortium was probably still thinking that the northern bandits would not amount to any threat. After all, which organization would be afraid of bandits? They were totally fine with leaving them in the valley to play by themselves. Facing such an opponent, the Zone Consortium and Yang Consortium would most likely have a really bad headache to deal with. Jin Lan smiled humbly. Don't exaggerate. Speaking of which, I'm bringing y'all back to the mountains so that I can provide everyone here a better life. Look at how skinny y'all are, especially you. He pointed at Ren Xiaosu. Look at how skinny you are. Your face is so bony and pale. It's like you don't even have any strength left. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a while. He looked at his own body and realized that since his strength and dexterity had reached equilibrium, it did make him look like he had lost some weight. Next to him, Yang Xiaojun was laughing like she had heard something really funny. Jin Lan did not care about Ren Xiaosu's reaction and continued to ramble, "Y'all don't know how intense the fighting to the north is. I don't know where all these forces came from either, but the fighting is getting more and more intense. Y'all can only survive by following me, understand?" Ren Xiaosu looked at Yang Xiaojun speechlessly. They had walked for more than 10 kilometers under the escort of the 20-odd bandits before they finally arrived at their camp. The camp was extremely simple and crude. It was just an empty area surrounded by wooden fences up in the mountains. There were some mud huts in the camp, and the roofs even had large holes in them. Apart from the new firearms, everything else was junk. Ren Xiaosu could imagine how miserable these people were before they started receiving support from the Qing consortium. But it was different now. There were even dozens of brand new motorcycles parked in the clearing of their campsite. Next to the motorcycles were dozens of green jerrycans used for storing fuel, and entire boxes of ammunition laid beside them. There were grenades and bullets piled up beside the jerrycans, and if anything blew up there, the explosion would probably swallow the entire ridge in an instant. Seeing this, Ren Xiaosu had some misgivings. He didn't want to die due to the stupidity of these bandits. That would be such the injustice. And right after that, he saw the bandits who had just returned to the camp start a cooking fire 10 meters away from the jerrycans. Ren Xiaosu's hair stood on end. He muttered to Yang Xiaojun, "If the other groups attack, these people won't even know how they died, right? The Zone Consortium can't even beat bandits this stupid." But despite saying that, he looked at how miserable Jin Lan's gang of bandits were and realized they were probably the weakest bandit gang in the entire valley. They didn't even know if they would survive until their next meal. Jin Lan suddenly said, "If you're willing to fight alongside me, go and collect guns from over there. This is your only chance to make a choice." Ren Xiaosu was shocked. How did this fellow conquer this part of the mountains? Wasn't he afraid these refugees would kill him with the guns they picked up? However, something else shocked Ren Xiaosu even more. More than 30 male refugees went to collect guns in the end, but after they took their guns, they just sat woodenly on the ground and let Jin Lan continue to lecture them. They had no intention of resisting. The sight unfolding before his eyes was just like the fantasy novels he had read back at Stronghold 88's library. But it was even stranger than fiction. These refugees had been told to submit since they were young and to obey orders. If they were disobedient, they would get beaten up. They did not have the courage to resist the organizations. They would choose to pledge allegiance to whichever mountain place they settled down at. This was a habit forced upon them by their difficult living conditions. At this moment, one of Jin Lan's subordinates came up to Ren Xiaosu. When he saw Yang Xiaojun, he was stunned. Although Yang Xiaojun had deliberately dirted her face, it was still difficult to conceal her good looks. The bandit said excitedly, "This chick is a looker. If she washes her face clean, she'll definitely be very pretty. She's mine now." Ren Xiaosu sighed at the words. Bandits were still bandits. He said, "Sorry, but let me break into this." All of a sudden, Ren Xiaosu flew into a rage. He punched the right side of the bandit's ribs while he was off guard, caving in the bandit's chest. The people around him were shocked. He really meant it when he said that he wanted to break in. He broke his bones just like that? He literally broke him. Jin Lan and the others were building a fire, and they were shocked by what they saw. They wanted to pick up the guns beside them to defend themselves. However, Ren Xiaosu did not stop moving. Before Jin Lan could get his hand near his gun, Ren Xiaosu had already come up to him and kicked him in the face. Jin Lan instinctively leaned backwards, and it was precisely this reaction that saved his life. However, he could feel his entire head buzzing. Gunfire rang out. Yang Xiaojun was holding a decorated pistol and covering Ren Xiaosu. The bandits who had picked up their guns suddenly felt their hands go numb. The wrists of their gun-toting hand were bleeding profusely. The refugees around them were all dumbfounded. Who was this couple who had just joined them? A clever bandit had already thudded onto his knees. Superhumans! Please spare my life! The speed and strength Ren Xiaosu displayed were definitely beyond that of a normal human. The bandits were not stupid either. They knew what they were facing right now. As for Yang Xiaojin's marksmanship, it was so shocking it could be seen. Jin Lan dizzily knelt on the ground with his nose bleeding profusely. "Sir, please spare my life. It was all a misunderstanding. We haven't been bandits for long and have never killed anyone before." Ren Xiaosu looked around and realized these useless things were all kneeling on the ground. They had even consciously thrown their guns far away from themselves. What kind of fucking bandits were they? Why were they not the least bit bloodthirsty? Ren Xiaosu looked at Jin Lan and frowned. "How did you even become a bandit?" Jin Lan was nearly crying as he wiped the blood from his nose. "We used to be farmers from Mt Tangwang to the north. But someone came around and told us to become bandits and even handed out guns, motorcycles, and food, so we decided to head into the mountains to become bandits. We've only been bandits for 2 months now." Ren Xiaosu was speechless for a long time. What on earth was the Qing Consortium trying to achieve? Jin Lan looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, "Boss, you'll be the leader of this mountain from now on. I hope you can lead us to be strong." "No, wait." Ren Xiaosu face-palmed. "What the hell are you talking about?" Jin Lan flattered with a smile, "You don't know, right? There's a gang of bandits to the north who are especially fearsome because their leader is a supernatural being. Since you're also a supernatural being, you'll definitely do better than him and be more powerful than him." However, the turn of events seemed a little unexpected. Ren Xiaosu realized that after Jin Lan and the others had been overpowered, they did not have any hate for him or even say any harsh words. Instead, they wanted this supernatural being to lead them to something greater. What kind of freaking mindset was that? Seeing this band of bandits addressing Ren Xiaosu as their boss, even the refugees standing nearby were stunned. They could never have expected such a reversal. It was also at this moment they realized Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojin were no ordinary people. The couple had not come to their settlement because they wanted to farm. In fact, they might even be bandits from another mountain hideout. Yang Xiaojin went on guard. She was responsible for preventing anyone from secretly attacking them with their guns. But after a while, she realized these people were actually serious about acknowledging Ren Xiaosu as their boss. He was here to exterminate the bandits, so how did it end up with him becoming the bandit leader? However, the first thing Ren Xiaosu said was, "Hurry up and move the firearms and fuel cans far away from me. By placing all the firearms in one spot, aren't y'all afraid you'll blow yourselves up?" Jin Lan, whose nose was bleeding, hurriedly stood up. "Listen to the boss. Hurry up and shift the things away. Don't keep them there and cause an eyesore to the boss." Yang Xiaojin came to Ren Xiaosu's side and watched the group of people busy themselves with their tasks. She said in a low voice, "How are we going to put a stop to this mess now?" Ren Xiaosu pondered for a long time. "Look at the logic you're going by. We're here to destroy the bandits, aren't we?" "Yes. We're here to figure out where all the bandits are hiding so we can capture them all." "Yes. Then look at it this way. If we go through so much effort to find them and then draw the terrain map," Ren Xiaosu said, "when the Zone Consortium and Yang Consortium's troops come storming, we might not be able to find them. These bandits were like rats, and the valley that had been cut through by rivers was like a sewer. It would be really easy for the regular combat troops to come here to fight them. All they had to do was send more people here, and they would have no problem dealing with the bandits." Ren Xiaosu did not believe the Zone Consortium would be so utterly defeated unless they had other motives. However, if the combat troops were not familiar with the terrain here, it would be impossible to exterminate the bandits entirely. Strictly speaking, it was not that it couldn't be done, but it was just not worth the effort. So, Yang Xiaojun looked at Ren Xiaosu. "We'll have the bandits come to us instead," Ren Xiaosu decided. At this moment, Yang Xiaojun did not realize what it would lead to, mainly because Ren Xiaosu's thinking was quite different from others. Under normal circumstances, it would not be possible to guess what he was thinking. Ren Xiaosu looked at the refugees. "Let's go back to farming." The refugees were stunned for a moment. "We can go back to farming." They had thought Ren Xiaosu would stay here at the mountain hideout as the bandit leader while they continued being their captives. After all, the bandits in the valley were all birds of a feather. But Ren Xiaosu was actually thinking of bringing them back to farm? "That's right," Ren Xiaosu said excitedly. "Haven't y'all dug the irrigation ditches already? Since they've already been dug, we have to sow the land. Now that we have weapons, we can choose not to be bandits and use them to protect our crops so that other bandits can't hurt us." The refugees were stunned. However, they still did not dare pick up the weapons. It was as though they would get into trouble the moment they picked one up. Not everyone liked fighting and killing. They chose to escape here to farm because they wanted to avoid everything that was going on in the outside world and find a quiet place where they could settle down. Among the refugees, if there were ruthless people such as Ren Xiaosu, then there were also cowardly ones who sought to avoid conflict. However, it was not exactly as simple as calling them cowardly. It could only be said that they were unwilling to fight others. Ren Xiaosu said, "We will definitely not take the fight to others. But if you don't have any means of protecting yourselves, then don't even think about being able to farm in peace. Think of your family and children." At the mention of the word children, some of the refugees were moved. Being used to the easy and comfortable life in the valley, they've realized it was no longer as safe in recent years. They had started becoming the targets of the bandits. Just like today when the bandits came and took them away, they were not even capable of retaliating. The children had to suffer as a result, while their wives might even end up becoming someone else's wife. Weapons could be used to invade, but they could also be used for protection. Some of the refugees slowly picked up the brand new firearms. However, they did not even know how to use them. All it did was boost their courage for now. But when they held the cold and unfeeling firearms in their hands, they somehow felt a sense of security. Ren Xiaosu beguiled the refugees and escorted Jinlan and the others back the way they came while riding pillion on Yang Xiaojun's motorcycle. Earlier on, when no one was looking, Ren Xiaosu even threw an entire box of grenades into his storage space. A grenade was similar in power to the explosive Poker's 4-3s, so this could save Ren Xiaosu quite a few gratitude tokens. After returning to the settlement, Ren Xiaosu gave Jinlan and the others a mission. "All y'all used to be refugees too. For now, don't think about being a bandit anymore. Behave yourselves and tend to the land here, ya hear?" Jinlan and the others had bitter looks on their faces. The bandits from the other mountain hideouts all abducted refugees and turned them into bandits. Meanwhile, even though they were also bandits, they had been abducted back to the settlement by refugees to farm. Yang Xiaojun watched as the refugees started plowing the fields again. She asked, "What do you plan to do with these refugees and bandits?" Ren Xiaosu looked at the sky and smiled. "We wait." Right at this moment, another cloud of dust kicked up in the distance. Yang Xiaojun looked at the gang of bandits screeching their way over and realized, "You were waiting for them to come knocking on our door." Just as Ren Xiaosu had said, it was too slow to go around looking for these people one by one. Based on what Jinlan had said, all the bandit gangs were trying to expand their strength and would not pass on raiding any human settlements they came across. In that case, why would Ren Xiaosu bother to go looking for them? He could easily wait for the bandits in the entire area consisting of Mt. Daban, Mt. Tangwang, and Mt. Guang to find him instead. Trapping. But we can only catch some of the small-time bandits in the south this way, Yang Ziajin said with a laugh. That's fine. I would be really afraid if the stronger bandit gangs showed up. Don't worry, we'll be able to defeat the bigger bandit gangs soon. Ren Xiaosu said in high spirits. When this new band of bandits was about to arrive, the refugees who had just returned to the settlement started panicking and did not know what to do. They had just returned home, and now they were about to get taken away again by other bandits. But while they were panicking, they saw Ren Xiaosu rush up to those bandits excitedly. Just by looking at Ren Xiaosu's expression, it was as though he were going out to receive his relatives. Yang Ziajin had already set up her sniper rifle atop a hill and was prepared to give Ren Xiaosu some long-range cover. Through her scope, she gazed at the band of bandits who were still unaware of what was going to happen. She suddenly felt that this expedition would turn out to be very interesting. At the very least, it was going to be much more interesting than when she last came here. What was a perfect firearms proficiency user? If one could not even handle a situation as simple as this, then they would not qualify to be called a perfect firearms proficiency user. It was at this time that Ren Xiaosu felt the joy of having a teammate protect him. He did not even have to worry about anyone sneaking up on him since the sneak attacker couldn't defend against getting sniped. Of course, Ren Xiaosu was also thinking about how he should integrate Jinlan and the bandits into the group. They might be respectful to him now, but that was because they were no match for him. Moreover, they had also been stripped of their firearms by him and the other refugees, so they had to behave. If he let Jinlan find an opportunity, who knew what he might try? However, Ren Xiaosu had still not thought of a solution to integrate them. At this moment, Jinlan and his gang of bandits were squatting on the ground and watching Ren Xiaosu capture the bandits who had just arrived. They whispered to each other, "Did you see that? Those two are freaking strong. It was definitely wise that we did not fight them head-on. Especially that lady, she doesn't even bat an eyelid when killing people. I've heard legends of that sniper rifle of hers before, but I'm seeing it for myself for the first time." One of his lackeys said, "But, boss, we did go head-on against them. We just didn't win, that's all. You talk too much. Boss, according to what you said, could these two people be linked with the consortiums?" The lackey wondered, could they be specialists from the consortiums? Jinlan shook his head. No, they don't feel like the typical consortium people. But what if they are? Someone wondered, where else would such specialists come from? I've never heard of anyone in the entire valley who knows how to use a sniper rifle. Look at the two of them. They aren't even bothered by the living conditions here nor wash their faces. How can they be from the strongholds? Jinlan continued arguing against the possibility. Could the important people from the strongholds endure this? Just like Ren Xiaosu in his earlier years, much of their views of those who came from the strongholds were largely based on their imagination. Stereotypes were already deeply embedded in the minds of all the refugees. In their opinion, people from the strongholds were all similar. Of course, the people from the stronghold also looked at them the same way. Then where do you think they're from? Someone asked softly. Wait a minute. Jinlan was taken aback. Don't fucking tell me they're from Stronghold 178? Didn't they say that highly skilled people all hail from Stronghold 178? I think only talents from Stronghold 178 would be this highly skilled and strong. Moreover, it's said that most of those in Stronghold 178 were former refugees. Holy shit, surely they can't really be from Stronghold 178, right? As Jinlan eliminated the possibilities, he came to the conclusion that Ren Xiaosu's and Yang Ziajin's backgrounds seemed to suggest they were likelier to be from the legendary Stronghold 178. They were not particular about the living conditions, did not have the delicate characters of those living in the strongholds, were vicious, mysterious, and really strong. In recent years, Stronghold 178's reputation in the Northwest had been spreading to the point of being a little too legendary, especially among the refugees. Jinlan muttered to himself, if the people from Stronghold 178 have really come down to the valley, then this is our chance. If we perform well, we might even get recruited into Stronghold 178 in the future. These days, Stronghold 178 no longer accepted outsiders into their ranks. Otherwise, it would definitely be a million times better to go to Stronghold 178 than be a bandit here in the valley. If Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun were from the consortiums, Jin Lan would not even think about joining them. After all, everyone knew what the consortiums were like, so why would they go there to suffer? But Stronghold 178 was different. It was a sacred place in the hearts of many refugees in the northwest. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu returned with a group of bruised and swollen bandits. He called out to Jin Lan, "Are you done with your tasks yet?" "Yes." "Please give me my next orders." This time, Jin Lan wasn't putting on an act like he was earlier. Instead, he was speaking with complete sincerity from the bottom of his heart. Ren Xiaosu threw him a gun. "You'll be the leader of first squad from now on. Take care of these people." Jin Lan was touched. "Thank you, boss." Gratitude received from Jin Lan, +1. Ren Xiaosu looked at Jin Lan in surprise. He only wanted to test this guy a little, but what was this sincere gratitude about? Ren Xiaosu wondered if he actually possessed a legendary leadership aura and that it had somehow caused this guy to submit to him. He said to Jin Lan, "Confiscate this group's guns and learn them. They'll be part of this settlement from now on." "All right, don't you worry." Jin Lan said, "Boss, may I ask you something?" Ren Xiaosu gave him a look. "Ask away." "Where are you from?" Jin Lan asked softly, "You aren't from around the valley, are you?" Ren Xiaosu was taken aback for a moment. He looked at Jin Lan. "Is this something that you should be asking about?" "All right, I won't ask any more," Jin Lan said guiltily. Then Yang Xiaojun walked over and said, "Don't bother with him for now. We have updates from the northwest." Ren Xiaosu shot a look at Jin Lan. "Go and do what you need to do. Keep an eye on them and make them recognize the reality of things. They'll have a bright future ahead by joining us." Jin Lan stifled his excitement. So they really were important figures from Stronghold 178. He believed Yang Xiaojun definitely had a slip of tongue earlier when she spoke to Ren Xiaosu. However, he had been listening for any clues that might give up their identities. And now everything matched his guesses. After Jin Lan left, Yang Xiaojun and Ren Xiaosu looked at each other and smiled. They had been discussing how to handle the issue of their identities last night and whether they could use it to make these bandits stay. They came up with a plan to pretend they were from Stronghold 178. In the end, before they could resort to doing so, Jin Lan had already sent himself straight into the trap. This way, the effect was going to be even better. What if there really are people from Stronghold 178 here? Yang Xiaojun asked. "At most, I'll take a special trip to Stronghold 178 to explain things to Zhang Jinglin. Don't worry, it'll be fine." Ren Xiaosu chuckled and said, "Hey, why do the refugees in the northwest fall so easily for something like that?" Yang Xiaojun nodded and said, "You're from the south, so you probably don't know how good Stronghold 178 is in the eyes of these people. A powerful organization that's impartial in accepting refugees into their stronghold is a one-of-a-kind existence out here in the northwest. But aren't they no longer accepting refugees?" Ren Xiaosu asked. Yang Xiaojun answered, "It's usually the things you can't have that make them even more precious." "All right." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "Then let's continue to remain mysterious and let this matter develop on its own. We'll see how it turns out." By this point, Jin Lan had already walked over to the other bandits with a mysterious smile on his face. Someone asked, "Boss, you look very happy, but you can't forget our original plans just because they gave you a gun." Jin Lan snapped, "What do you know? Am I such a shallow person?" I'm telling you, those two really are from Stronghold 178. What do we do now? The lackey said, are we still running away? They were definitely not a match for Ren Xiaosu. So while they were coming here, Jin Lan and the others had secretly discussed if they should escape at night while everyone was sleeping. That way, they would stand a chance of regaining their freedom. However, Jin Lan had changed his mind now. He said, run? My ass! I'm not running anywhere. I'm gonna stay right here. If I get a chance to go to Stronghold 178, I'll be rich. The others were also tempted by his words. But will they allow us to join them? That's why I'm telling y'all to behave. Jin Lan said, alright, I'll talk to the newcomers and settle them in first. This is the first mission the boss has given me, so I must not disappoint him. His lackeys fell silent. Fine. What else could they say since their boss had already acknowledged a new boss? Jin Lan came over to the new bandits and said with a smile, hey, guys, which mountain hideout are y'all from? We're the gang from MT Daban's west face. The bandit leader of the newcomers said, I'm warning you, we still have over 50 brothers back at our lair. Hurry up and release us, or y'all will be in serious trouble when the rest of our brothers get here. Jin Lan laughed, bro, who are you trying to threaten? How dare you make threats in front of Stronghold 178's people? You said that you still have more than 50 brothers back at your lair, but do you know how many brothers we have in Stronghold 178? The person standing across from Jin Lan was stunned. What the hell? People from Stronghold 178? It was no wonder the young man and woman who had just given them a good beating were so strong. He looked at Jin Lan and asked uncertainly, are all of you from Stronghold 178? Jin Lan hesitated. Not yet for me, then what are you blabbering about? The bandit leader snapped. But those two lords who beat y'all up are. Jin Lan lowered his voice and said, bro, I used to be from the North Face. You know where Mushroom Ridge is? Wait. The bandit standing across from him was stunned. He said, you were also captured by them? I've heard about those 20 or so people over at Mushroom Ridge. Someone said that they lived real awfully there. Jin Lan's face darkened immediately. How can you speak like that? I've turned my life around. Do you see the gun at my waist? It's a reward from our two lords over there. From now on, I'll be your leader, so you better wise up. The bandit said meekly, are those two really from Stronghold 178? How do you know that? Hee. Jin Lan whispered, let me tell you, I discovered it myself, so it's definitely true. Think about it again. Do you still want to go back to your west face, or would you rather stay here for a better future? At this point, the bandit was close to believing what he said. Most people would not use Stronghold 178's name as a joke. Moreover, the immense power displayed by Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun in combat made their hearts pound. Jin Lan said in a low voice, last year when winter had just arrived, Master Su happened to pass by this place. Did you hear about it? Yet. The bandit leader said as his eyes lit up, are those two related to Master Su as well? I'm not sure about that. Jin Lan said, but when Master Su passed by here back then, a reckless gang of bandits tried to rob him. At first, 2 of the bandits were finished off by some sort of magic. That angered the rest of the bandits, and more than 50 of them attacked all at once. However, they still couldn't hold him down despite that. That flying black cauldron was the best. I also heard about it. It's true. The bandit leader said, I heard that Master Su has another power that summons a shadow. How can the shadow be more powerful than the cauldron? Jin Lan said excitedly, I heard that the cauldron is extremely powerful. The 50-odd bandits shot at it for half an hour with their guns but still couldn't break it. Hey, that's an exaggeration. What I heard was that they fired at it for 2 whole minutes. Let's not get too bothered with the details, Jin Lan said unhappily. In the aftermath, those bandits regretted their actions. At that time, Master Su had still not risen to power. If they followed him at that time, they would have found salvation. That same opportunity has now presented itself right in front of us, so my advice to you is to give it a rest. More importantly, who can confirm that the two of them are from Stronghold 178, the bandit leader said unconvinced. Even though they might be strong, I still don't really believe they are who they say they are. Do whatever you like then, Jin Lan said coldly. He suddenly felt that everyone was drunk whereas he was the only sober one. But at this moment, Jin Lan saw a dark shadow darting past in an irrigation ditch. He thought he was seeing things, so he asked the people next to him, "Did y'all see anything just now?" Someone said, "I think I saw a dark shadow moving extremely fast." The bandit who'd just been captured today started laughing. "I'm afraid that our brothers at home are getting worried about us. They must be here to rescue us." "Bullshit!" Jin Lan spat out, "as if you people are that close." Some of the bandits hurried after the shadow by following the ditches while Jin Lan followed close behind them in the fear they would escape. However, they did not find anyone there. Some of them could not accept this and continued chasing. But less than 2 minutes later, they were surprised to see Ren Xiaosu talking face to face with a shadow. The shadow that felt like a physical being handed Ren Xiaosu a letter before sprinting off into the wilderness. A lot of others who were following Jin Lan also witnessed what just happened. "What did y'all say about Master Su's other power?" someone asked in a soft, quivering voice. "Two different superhumans can't have the same power, that much I do know." Jin Lan said in a low voice, "Let's get out of here. They definitely won't want anyone to discover them if they've chosen to meet in such a secretive spot. If they find out that we saw them, they might even try to silence us." But before they could leave, Ren Xiaosu had already looked up and discovered Jin Lan and the others. His face darkened and a killing intent seemed to slowly start forming. Jin Lan immediately knelt on the ground and cried, "Boss, I didn't see anything. Please don't kill me, please don't kill me." Immediately, everyone behind Jin Lan also knelt down in fear that Ren Xiaosu might silence them. Ren Xiaosu slowly walked up to Jin Lan and the others. After a long pause, he said, "All right, get up, but y'all must keep it a secret." Jin Lan and the others nearly cried. "Boss, thank you for sparing us. Thank you for sparing us." Gratitude received from Jin Lan, +1. Gratitude received from, with this wave of gratitudes alone, Ren Xiaosu harvested over a dozen gratitude tokens and his number of gratitude tokens was back to around 900 or so. Jin Lan and the others got up and ran towards the settlement. Along the way, Jin Lan asked while panting, "So do you still want to run away? Do you believe me now?" However, the new bandit next to him said, "Can you please let me return to my lair?" Jin Lan was stunned. "You still want to run away?" "No, I want to get all my brothers to come back here with me and surrender together." In their poorest days 3 years ago, the bandits even reached a stage where they had to eat wild vegetables and chew on bark and tree roots. As bandits, they were leading terrible lives. Some of the bandits even ran back to the consortium's factories to work. 2 years ago, their situation improved after the Qing consortium set their sights on this place. At the beginning, they only brought food to them so they would not starve to death or leave the valley. From last year onwards, they started secretly sending weapons here. This was a gradual process. Naturally, the bandits were unaware it was the Qing consortium that supported them. They did not care who they were and were only concerned about how long the aid would last. Everyone knew that whoever was sending them the firearms had to have other motives. All of this was probably done so there would be chaos in the valley and in turn lead to an easier consolidation of forces. But so what if they knew the motive behind all this? They still had to at least survive. If they got unified later, that wouldn't be too bad either. At least, they would have their meals taken care of. But now there was a brighter path put ahead of them. It was just up to them whether they chose it. Jin Lan whispered, "There's no point saying that. You'll have to speak to the two lords." "All right then." The bandit hesitated for a while before finally going off to look for Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu was currently having a discussion with Yang Xiaojin about the outcome. "I wonder if they've heard of old Su's power before. What if they know nothing of it?" Actually, Ren Xiaosu's move was an unnecessary one. He thought that if he used Su Xianchu's signature power and called upon the shadow clone, these people might link it to Su Xianchu since his reputation was rather well known now. In this way, their identities as members of Stronghold 178 would be even more realistic. But what Ren Xiaosu was worried about was that these bandits had never heard of Su Xianchu before. Yang Xiaojin looked at him and said, "Aren't you afraid you'll mess things up?" "At worst, we'll just go back," Ren Xiaosu said nonchalantly. As they were discussing this, the bandit came up to them. Ren Xiaosu looked calmly at him. "What's the matter?" "Boss," the bandit hesitated for a moment before saying, "Can you let me return home for a while?" Ren Xiaosu raised his eyebrows. "Do you think you can ask for sick leave to return home? Who said you could go home?" "No, please hear me out." The bandit explained, "I just wanted to go back and bring all my brothers here." Ren Xiaosu was stunned as he looked at Yang Xiaojin. The strategy was working. It seemed like these people knew about Su Xianchu. He deliberated for a moment before saying, "What do you know?" The bandit quickly shook his head in fear. "I don't know anything, really. I don't know that you're from Stronghold 178. Shoo." Ren Xiaosu did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You have a day." "Yes, yes. Thank you." The bandit took it as an opportunity bestowed by Ren Xiaosu and was deeply grateful. Gratitude received from Zhang Yihan, +1. After that, Zhang Yihan hopped on his motorcycle and rode off by himself. Ren Xiaosu was not afraid he would not return. Even if he did not, Ren Xiaosu would only lose one person. He was not bothered by that in the slightest. He turned to Yang Xiaojin and said, "My strategy should be working." Initially, Ren Xiaosu was most worried about the fact that even though he could lay the trap to capture all of these bandits, they would be beyond his control after a few hundred or even thousands of them had been forced to stay here. So Ren Xiaosu could finally heave a sigh of relief now. Yang Xiaojin looked at Ren Xiaosu with a smile as she sat on a mound and quietly rested her chin on her hand. Who would have thought that Ren Xiaosu could come up with so many tricks when all she did was invite him along to exterminate the bandits? To be honest, Yang Xiaojin did not care about the success of the bandit extermination operation. What did this have anything to do with her anyway? She just did not want to quarrel with Yang Yuan because of it. Yang Xiaojin could have enjoyed leading a rich person's life in the stronghold, but she did not like being in there. She would rather lay down in the wilderness for 3 days and 3 nights than stay in the stronghold. And now she was really looking forward to seeing what other ideas Ren Xiaosu could come up with. Ren Xiaosu looked at Yang Xiaojin. "The more I think about it, the more I feel that the Qing Consortium must be behind the chaos happening in the valley. In fact, they've been planning for this since last year." Yang Xiaojin tilted her head. The Qing Consortium's plans here are definitely to plot against the Zone Consortium and your Yang Consortium. However, the Qing Consortium still does not have much authority in this place. We've already heard about how the North is caught in a deadlock between the 3 forces. Who knows, maybe someone from the Zone Consortium is trying to thwart the Qing Consortium's plans for this region. Ren Xiaosu said, "But if the Qing Consortium ends up as the victor, there will be no more bandits here and only their puppets will remain. Qing Zhen is, not a person who's easy to deal with. Aren't you worried about it?" "I'm not worried," Yang Xiaojin said calmly. "Are you blaming the Yang Consortium for treating you as a chess piece in all this?" Ren Xiaosu asked curiously. "I don't hate them nor do I feel close to them." Yang Xiaojin changed the subject. "What's your next step going to be?" Why do I get the feeling that you are very interested in this valley? Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and then said with a smile, perhaps I'll come here someday and settle down for the long term. You want to leave the stronghold? Is it because of Yan Liuyuan? I can feel the aversion he has for the strongholds, Yang Xiaojun asked. Liuyuan is one of the reasons. I don't want him to feel wronged. Ren Xiaosu took a look at the sky. It's not only him, I dislike the strongholds too. I think it'll be more comfortable living out here. So you're thinking of establishing a foothold here, right? Yang Xiaojun gave it some thought and said, but that won't be easy. This is only just the beginning. There's still a long way to go. In response, Ren Xiaosu asked, will you come and help me? Clouds were scudding across the blue sky while the dusty ground of the wastelands remained still. The refugees had just finished digging irrigation ditches and were ready to go home. Even the wind had stopped blowing. Ren Xiaosu seemed to have asked her casually. Yang Xiaojun was stunned for a moment. She chuckled as she got up and walked back towards the settlement. That depends on my mood. In the evening, the sound of motorcycle engines came from the wastelands in the distance. It sounded like there were a lot of them as well. As Ren Xiaosu watched from afar, Jin Lan ran to him. Boss, should we grab our weapons? What if those bastards are up to no good? Ren Xiaosu turned around and saw that Yang Xiaojun had already reached a hidden spot on a hilltop and occupied a commanding position. He laughed and said, don't worry, we'll be fine. Even without him, Yang Xiaojun alone would be enough to frighten away those useless bandits. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered the sniper who had wiped out the remainder of the Divine Arms Battalion deep in the Li Consortium's territory. That was probably Yang Xiaojun too, wasn't it? Zhang Yihan shouted from afar, boss, don't shoot. It's me. Yang Xiaojun lay prone on a mound and scrutinized the subtle movements of these people using her scope to prevent anyone from sneaking an attack on Ren Xiaosu. However, she realized these people were not at all aggressive. Their guns were slung across their chests and the safeties weren't even off. Furthermore, these people were really here to join them. They not only brought along all of their firearms and ammunition from their mountain hideout, but were carrying their own ragged bedrolls along as well. The bandits looked rather fierce as they rode on their muscular motorcycles. And they had their tattered blankets wrapped around their backs. The sight really could not get any stranger than this. It looked like they really planned to live here for an extended period. Yang Xiaojun sighed when she thought about how she and Ren Xiaosu had initially come to exterminate the bandits. So how did Ren Xiaosu suddenly end up becoming the leader of the bandits? Even Yang Xiaojun, who had witnessed the entire development for herself, was left a little confused at the unexpected turn of events. When Zhang Yihan came up to Ren Xiaosu, he immediately jumped off his motorcycle and said respectfully, boss, I've brought all my brothers here. We'll all listen to your orders from now on. Zhang Yihan's brothers behind him quietly sized up Ren Xiaosu. So this was the specialist from Stronghold 178 their boss had mentioned? He looked really young. Wait a minute, wasn't there supposed to be a sniper around? At this moment, everyone realized they might already be in the sniper's sights. When they thought of this, they shuddered in fear at the possibility that the sniper might accidentally shoot them if they made any sudden movements. Ren Xiaosu found it a little awkward hearing a man in his 30s addressing him as boss. But now was not the time to contemplate that. Jin Lan, find a place for all these brothers. We'll have a meeting tomorrow. The refugees living here from the beginning grinned when they saw this sight. The children were playing around their parents in a relaxed mood. At the beginning, the refugees were quite afraid of the bandits. But after thinking about it, didn't the bandits also dig irrigation ditches with them? They did not even dare to slack off one bit either. When they thought of this, the refugees gradually accepted the reality of their situation. Furthermore, Ren Xiaosu told them earlier in the evening that since they had already solved the issue of having enough people to defend the settlement, those who wanted to farm would not have to bear arms and fight anymore. That responsibility would naturally fall to the bandits. When it was time to sleep at night, Ren Xiaosu lay down outside the tent with his arms acting as a pillow for his head. He said to Yang Xiaojun, who was in the tent, "For some reason, I still feel that something's missing. Although we can fool them into staying put with our identities, they're barely capable of fighting." Inside the tent, Yang Xiaojun was still awake. Before Ren Xiaosu set off, Xiaoyu had prepared the tent for him. At the beginning, they did not use it because they were pretending to be refugees. But it was unnecessary to do so anymore after they had deliberately exposed themselves. They decided to stop pretending and laid all their cards on the table. Based on Xiaoyu's intentions, this was definitely the kind of opportunity she had identified for Ren Xiaosu. But when the moment came, Ren Xiaosu got timid and ended up volunteering to sleep outside the tent. He even built a campfire out here. Yang Xiaojun said, "You want them to be combat ready?" "Yes." Ren Xiaosu said, "You've seen the standard of those bandits for yourself. If they really end up fighting others, I doubt they'll even know how to use the guns. And they'll probably run away covering their heads if some of them get killed or injured. How are soldiers usually trained in the military? Under normal circumstances, if the weaker units lose 20% to 40% of their numbers, their entire unit is as good as gone. Only the soldiers with conviction persevere." Yang Xiaojun said, "The training a soldier goes through in the military is based on two aspects. First, it trains their military skills, and second, it enables them to become fearless through ideology. Neither of these two aspects are something that can be achieved overnight. I have to give it a try no matter what." Ren Xiaosu chuckled. "All right then, I'll teach them how to use the guns," Yang Xiaojun said. "As for the ideology, we should unite them first." Ren Xiaosu asked, "Do you have any ideas?" "They have to suffer together until they can find joy amid hardship," Yang Xiaojun said. Ren Xiaosu understood what Yang Xiaojun meant. It would be easy to see who their real friends were after they got put through adversity. But if they were allowed to get rich, they would become greedy instead. Is it cozy in the tent?" Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked. Yang Xiaojun calmly replied, "Why don't you come in and see if it's cozy?" "Ha ha ha." Ren Xiaosu laughed in embarrassment and said, "I was just asking." Ren Xiaosu was the first to back down. The next morning, Ren Xiaosu woke everyone up from their slumber. Those bandits who were sleeping soundly were suddenly awoken. Just as they were about to lose their temper, they calmed down when they saw it was Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu gathered everyone and said, "Have any of you used a brick kill before?" The bandits looked at each other. Why was this boss so different from the bosses at the other mountain hideouts? The bosses in the other mountain hideouts would at least say some decent words when recruiting new brothers, things like "stick with me and we'll have good food and good wine," or "I'll lead everyone to something greater." But over at Ren Xiaosu's place, they were first asked to dig ditches and were then made to build brick kilns? Someone raised his hand and said softly, "I worked at the Zone Consortium's brick factory. Do you know how to build a brick kiln?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "Although the conditions here suck, we can still build a simple one with less bricks." That bandit said, "But we don't have enough firewood here, and it won't be enough to just use the shrubs in the area." Yang Xiaojun chimed in, "The spring floods will come soon. The melting of the upstream glaciers will trigger a flood. When the time comes, there'll be a lot of wood drifting downstream, and we'll definitely get enough firewood to use." "All right." Ren Xiaosu said to Jin Lan, "Bring the weapons over." Last night, Ren Xiaosu had ordered Jin Lan to seize everyone's weapons. Ren Xiaosu said, "I know what y'all are thinking, but it won't be easy to gain my approval." Everyone looked at each other. These words were clear as day. It seemed like it would not be that easy to become a part of Stronghold 178. If Ren Xiaosu had said it was incredibly easy to join Stronghold 178, they would not have believed it. After all, this was Stronghold 178 they were talking about. So the more difficult their tests, the more realistic the trial would feel. Zhang Yihan said, "Just name the place. We'll attack wherever you want us to." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "I don't want bandits who only know how to clamor for war. With your combat strength, you're still not worth my attention." The bandits started murmuring among themselves again. The people from Stronghold 178 are so capable. They don't even have eyes for people like us, Jin Lan said resolutely, "Just tell us what to do. We'll start making bricks today. Since we're still digging ditches, I want all of you to get into the river and dig up the silt to make into clay bricks. Every 10 bricks made earns you 1 bullet. Once you amass 100 bullets, I'll return your guns to you. When that happens, you'll have the chance to prove yourselves to us. Instructor Yang here will teach y'all how to properly use a gun." The bandits bit their tongues nervously. Even qualifying for the test was going to be this difficult? This was definitely not a trick. Someone once said this water was from the heavens and that it always flowed east without stop. The valley that had been dry for many months would receive an abundant source of water by spring. This was the best time for them to farm and irrigate. When the time came, the massive source of water from the river would fill up the irrigation ditches and turn the dusty channels into a riverbed. Ren Xiaosu and the bandits had to make enough clay bricks before the spring floods arrived. When the tree trunks were sent floating downstream by the spring floods, it would be time for them to start firing bricks. Someone remarked that they shouldn't have to work so hard to fire bricks. It would be good enough to just build some mud huts. Hadn't everyone always lived like that? However, Ren Xiaosu said, "Why should the stronghold residents get brick houses to live in, but not us? And we're not just going to build houses, but defenses too." When a refugee asked if he was planning to build a new stronghold here, Ren Xiaosu was surprised. He smiled and said, "Isn't it better to live in the wilderness? Why do we have to wall everyone up?" When he said that, the refugees fell silent. However, they started working more diligently after that. The bandits put down their guns and dug for silt in the riverbank barefoot. After digging up baskets of silt, they got back to dry ground and made them into clay bricks. The idea of digging for silt sounded easy, but it was much harder when they did it. The bandits had only brought guns with them to this settlement and did not have any shovels. If they wanted to dig for silt, they had to do it barehanded. The weather was frigid. Although the fierce bandits were freezing their balls off, they still insisted on working. "If you keep pushing them like this, won't they give up?" Yang Xiaojun asked. "No," Ren Xiaosu said with a smile, "the more tired they are, the more they'll believe that all of this is real. The more relaxed they have it, the more they'll suspect that things might not be what they seem. But they'll surely find out someday," Yang Xiaojun said. Ren Xiaosu turned to Yang Xiaojun and said in seriousness, "I want to build a home here. In the past, it was just a blurry idea in my mind. But when I saw them working, the idea became much clearer over time. When the time comes, I'll give them a proper explanation." This was also the first step Ren Xiaosu would be taking to train these bandits. He wanted to change the habits of these bandits who were used to being lazy and robbing others of their possessions. By making them go through all kinds of hardships here, he would build a peculiar feeling called camaraderie. After a tiring day, the bandits were grumbling endlessly, and even Jin Lan started to waver. He was so tired he felt like crying when he looked at the mud on his hands and feet. "Why don't we just go back to being bandits instead of trying to get into fucking Stronghold 178? This is way too tough." Yet, someone slumped down on the edge of the riverbed and looked up at the sky in a daze. "What are we really after?" Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan were currently the leaders of the first squad and second squad, respectively. When the others saw the leaders starting to waver, their conviction was shaken even more. At noon, some of the refugees from the settlement suddenly came over carrying baskets and placed them down on the ground. Curious, Jin Lan asked, "Hey, mate, what's that?" A good-natured refugee smiled in embarrassment and said, "We have yet to thank y'all for helping us dig the ditches. We made this cornbread ourselves. If they taste bad, we hope y'all won't mind it." Jin Lan was stunned. He did not know how to react to this situation. When he finally managed to speak, his speech was filled with expletives. "Why are you being so fucking polite? You don't have to be so fucking polite with me. Just put the damn cornbread down. Feel free to yell for me if you need any fucking help with anything." Jin Lan made it sound like he was just doing his work, not because he wanted to help the refugees. That shocked the refugees. At this moment, someone asked Jin Lan, "Boss, why don't we escape this place tonight?" However, Jin Lan hesitated for a moment before saying, "Let's endure it for another 2 days and keep an eye on things. It won't be too late to run away by then. Our fellow villagers have made us some cornbread, so we should at least build houses for them first." After work at night, everyone lay on the ground and did not want to move. Ren Xiaosu came to the riverbank and saw the clay bricks stacked on wooden planks. "Get up and come over here to collect your bullets. You should only report the number of clay bricks that you made. Every 10 bricks get you 1 bullet in exchange." Humans were very strange beings. These bullets were theirs to begin with and were not worth anything at all. Even though they did not seem to care much about it when they were working, everyone was still quite happy when they knew they could trade the bricks for bullets. Jin Lan got up and said, "Me. I made 30 clay bricks today. I could have made even more if it was easier to dig out the silt." Ren Xiaosu nodded. You get 3 bullets in exchange." Looking at the 3 brass-colored bullets in his palm, Jin Lan felt a sense of accomplishment was inexplicably touched. But these were clearly just 3 normal bullets, so why was he feeling that? This was the idea that Ren Xiaosu had come up with. If they just focused on working hard, the bandits would get depressed because they could not see their progress or the end of it. But by breaking down the progress into 100 bullets and letting the bandits measure their own achievements, they would have an objective to work towards. At this moment, Jin Lan started calculating. If he could earn 3 bullets in 1 day, he might be able to earn up to 5 bullets a day once he got the hang of it. Then he could find salvation in less than a month. How long was a month at most? Thinking of it this way, Jin Lan suddenly felt he could endure this a bit more. At worst, he would just leave after the month if things didn't go according to plan. That would not cause much of a delay anyway. At this moment, he looked at the others. When he saw Zhang Yihun with only 2 bullets in his hand, he laughed and said, "Buddy, you don't seem to be doing well. You only managed to receive 2 bullets." Zhang Yihun was so angry his face turned red. "I just haven't gotten good at the work yet, but I'll definitely get more bullets than you tomorrow." Then Zhang Yihun looked to his side and saw someone without any bullets at all. He also laughed. "I'm still not the worst here." Ren Xiaosu did not say anything. He did not criticize those who had done less work nor praise those who did more. Jin Lan laughed and went up to him. "Boss, what do you think of me? I did the most work today." Ren Xiaosu said noncommittally, "Y'all have to understand that I'm only giving you a chance because you want to pass the test. It's not like you're helping me with anything." Then Ren Xiaosu turned around and left. Jin Lan was stunned in the wake of Ren Xiaosu's words. He said in shock after snapping out of his daze, "Boss, thank you for giving us this opportunity." Gratitude received from Jin Lan, +1. Suddenly, Jin Lan turned around and roared, "It isn't dark yet, but y'all can go back first, I still want to work a little longer." The bandits looked at each other. They were already very tired, but they suddenly gained a little more motivation when they heard that. But at this moment, Yang Xiaojin came up to them and said, "Stop working. Everyone, wash your hands clean and prepare for class." Ren Xiaosu did not think he could control everyone else's behavior since he was not a god. But he was not in a hurry to convince them because he still had time. In the evening, Yang Xiaojun did not give them any firearms lessons. Jin Lan and the other bandits who were amateurs at shooting were looking forward to the firearms lessons most of all. When Yang Xiaojun fought them, she displayed her superior shooting. So everyone got very excited when Yang Xiaojun told them that they would be attending her lessons. However, Yang Xiaojun said to them, "Let me tell you about the 5 disciplines of our group. Everyone is to memorize them without leaving out a word." Jin Lan started panicking. Why did they have to memorize disciplines? He was most afraid of memorization when he attended the school in town years back. So why did he still have to memorize now that he had become a bandit? Jin Lan asked, Boss lady. Yang Xiaojun raised her eyebrows when she heard him address her that way, but she did not say anything about it in the end. What's the matter? Didn't boss say that he wanted us to learn about firearms? Jin Lan said anxiously, so why do we still have to memorize all these fucking disciplines? Lan Yang Xiaojun sneered, do you have guns right now? How are you supposed to attend a firearms lesson without guns? The bandits were stunned. So they had to earn enough bullets and retrieve their weapons before they were qualified to attend the firearms lessons. Jin Lan touched the 3 bullets in his pocket bitterly and thought how it would take him another 20 days or so before he could start learning more about firearms. Then Yang Xiaojun said, those of you who manage to trade for a gun will be able to attend the lessons. I wonder if any of you are suitable to be snipers. Jin Lan's eyes lit up at the words. You can teach us how to use a sniper rifle too. Yang Xiaojun said calmly, don't be so happy yet. Since sniping depends on your natural attributes, out of the 200 of you, only 2 or 3 will get selected for sniper training. So you all better not have high hopes. Yang Xiaojun deliberately gave them something to look forward to before personally extinguishing their hopes. But how could that thought be stifled? When Jin Lan heard that 2 or 3 of them could become snipers, he immediately thought he might be one of the chosen ones. Before hitting the brick wall of reality, everyone would hope they could be the lucky ones. They were talking about getting a role as a sniper after all. It felt really exciting just to think about. All the rough and tumble men loved guns since they represented a form of power, security, and authority. And the sniper rifle represented the pinnacle of firearms. Yang Xiaojun glanced at them. It's still too early to be happy now, so you'd better memorize the disciplines first. Otherwise, don't even think about touching the guns. Jin Lan whispered, Boss lady, can I have a look at your sniper rifle? I haven't had the chance to get a close look at it. Yang Xiaojun gave him a look and then pulled her sniper rifle out of thin air. Jin Lan and the others gasped at the sight. So it fucking turned out that these 2 were supernatural beings. At first, they thought Yang Xiaojun was just a sniper and did not expect that she could actually pull a sniper rifle out of thin air. It was no wonder they did not see where she had hidden her gun. Yang Xiaojun put the sniper rifle away and said, now, I'll explain to you what the disciplines are. First, obey the order and execute it without fail. After reciting them several times, the dumb bandits still couldn't memorize the disciplines. Yang Xiaojun had Jin Lan write the 5 disciplines on the ground with a tree branch. They did not have to understand them and only needed to memorize them. When these people started trying to memorize the disciplines, Yang Xiaojun went over to Ren Xiaosu, who was not too far away. We're really making things difficult for them. Ren Xiaosu chuckled. Without discipline, no army can exist. This is something that they need to go through. There's no other way. Yang Xiaojun said calmly, you're really not afraid they'll just fall out with each other? What's there to be afraid of? Ren Xiaosu said with a smile, since ancient times, strict teachers have produced outstanding students, strict parents have raised filial children, and strict discipline has made strong armies. You might think that making them go through this suffering will tear them apart, but I think that these hardships will make them band together even more tightly. What was discipline to an army? Discipline was the code of conduct, the external manifestation of combat power, the morale of the soldiers, and the image and honor of a unit. It was not useless. On the contrary, Ren Xiaosu thought no army could exist without discipline. He could not forget how the private troops were so messy in behavior and appearance when he first saw them, nor could he forget how Qing Zhen's troops awed him when he witnessed how disciplined they moved. Discipline was the first step of their ideology. Only after they achieved that could they start talking about things like a sense of belonging or honor. Unfortunately, some of these bandits were illiterate. Even though the disciplines were written clearly on the ground, it was illegible to them. Jin Lan was exasperated by this. "I'm telling you, Yan Laoliu. You have to fucking memorize it even if you can't. Don't disgrace our first squad. I'm still waiting to go through the sniper training." Yang Ziajin had told them that no one could start learning about guns if any of them could not fully memorize the disciplines. Ren Xiaosu specifically ordered this. He was hoping they could all learn to be a little more united through helping each other. This was also the first time he played the role of instructor. He was feeling his way forward, but it would be good enough if these bandits could pick up a little of what he was trying to teach them. Ren Xiaosu turned to Yang Ziajin and said with a smile, "What do you think of my methods?" Yang Ziajin smirked. "Not bad, I guess." She thought this was really getting more and more interesting. There was even a moment when she suddenly started looking forward to the day when there would be plenty of brick houses and farmland here, with groups of children playing and lots of laughter in the air. But could there be such a possibility in this chaotic world? Yang Ziajin suddenly asked, "I can work out something with the Yang Consortium and let this settlement remain. But what if the Qing Consortium is really trying to consolidate the forces in the valley? What do we do after they find us here? How could bandits possibly stand up to the capabilities of an organization?" The reason the bandits could survive in the valley was because they were flexible. To put it bluntly, they were good at running away. But once they built a fixed settlement, they couldn't run away anymore. If they ended up running away, all of their previous efforts would have come to nothing. Ren Xiaosu said with a smile, "That's fine. Both Qing Zhen and Luolan still owe me big favors." Whether it was saving Luolan or helping the Qing Consortium attack the Li Consortium's defensive line, these were both favors he had done for them. So when Ren Xiaosu guessed several days ago that it was the Qing Consortium behind the chaos in the valley, he no longer panicked. After all, he had worked with them on many occasions. "All right." Yang Ziajin nodded. She did not object to Ren Xiaosu being friends with Qing Zhen and Luolan, nor would she request Ren Xiaosu to help her locate the Qing Consortium's nuclear test site. That was the saboteurs and her own business. It had nothing to do with Ren Xiaosu, so there was no need to impose such a responsibility onto Ren Xiaosu. After arriving here, they ended up having to work for the guns that were theirs to begin with. That sounded incredibly absurd, but everyone suddenly seemed to be enjoying it. It was as though it had suddenly become an honor to be able to carry guns again. At the beginning, quite a few people slacked off. They only pretended to be busy while the others worked hard. They would lie on the edge of the riverbed to sleep and bask in the sun or watch the others as they worked. But that changed by the third day. Those who did not do any work previously started feeling a little embarrassed of themselves. When the others were resting, they would continue working just to make up progress after falling behind for the past 2 days. Otherwise, it would be too fucking embarrassing when the others received their guns again and they were still empty-handed. Furthermore, Yang Ziajin had already informed them that she would not give any firearm lessons as long as a single person was still without their gun. This left Jin Lan in a dilemma. He and Zhang Yihan were each put in charge of more than 100 people, so both of them were well aware of who was fast or slow in their progress. Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan counted all the bullets and found that some people were still missing quite a few. As such, Jin Lan took the lead and called for a meeting. "Well, our goal was to quickly save up 100 bullets each so that we can trade them for the guns, but some people have fallen behind. If it were because they were slacking, I would not care about them. But y'all saw for yourselves how anxious they are to get to 100 bullets too, so as the leader, I'll donate 1 bullet to each of them." Then Zhang Yihan also said to his second squad, "I'll donate a bullet to each of those who are short from my stash as well." The bandits looked at each other for a while before someone hesitantly said, "I'll donate too, but on one condition, they have to be returned." Soon after, a large number of bandits donated around 6 bullets each. Although there was still a shortfall, the gap was considerably closed. Jin Lan was very pleased and nodded. "Well done, brothers. Let's continue our work." Ren Xiaosu looked at them from afar. Suddenly, he said to Yang Xiaojun beside him, "I came across a book in the library of Stronghold 88 hidden away in a corner. It was called The Crowd One. There's a passage in the book that states that once a person becomes part of a group, their intelligence will be badly lowered. In order to be accepted, an individual must be willing to abandon their capacity for reasoning and exchange their intelligence for a sense of belonging, which makes them feel safe," Ren Xiaosu continued. "Maybe that's the reason why it's so easy to get influenced when you're in a group." Yang Xiaojun said calmly, "Do you mean they're going through this situation now?" Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "I'd rather believe that this is the power of hope." Now that this group had a common goal, these bandits who went through hardship together were also seeking ways to achieve that goal as quickly as possible. Friendship would be established in the process. Jin Lan was working with the others when he suddenly sensed that another 2 people had appeared next to him. After he took a closer look, it turned out to be Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun. They saw Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun taking off their shoes and rolling up their sleeves. Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan hurriedly said, "Lords, you two don't have to work. Please rest and leave the work to us." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "It's fine, we're not spoiled. You can divide the clay bricks that we make equally among your 2 squads. I'll leave the squad leaders to assign them to their members." The bandits were stunned. They never thought Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun would also work together with them. Shouldn't these big shots be resting on the sidelines? Back when they were working at the factories, the foreman did not do any physical work. While they went down to the coal mines, the foreman would sit outside and supervise the workers while resting. Furthermore, the 2 people in front of them were much more impressive than those foremen. Both of them were supernatural beings, after all. Especially Yang Xiaojun, who was a woman, even she got to working together with them. Their boss lady was really quite different from the others. Ren Xiaosu's face darkened. "What are y'all still standing around for? Trying to be lazy?" Jin Lan chuckled. "No, we're not. Brothers, let's keep working." The bandits carried on working in silence. It was still the same work and the goal was still the same goal they had set out to achieve. But when Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun jumped in the trenches with them, it felt like a little more. It was a little more human compassion. At this moment, a cloud of dust billowed in the distance. Ren Xiaosu was all too familiar with this sight. He knew a new band of bandits had arrived. According to Yang Xiaojun's estimation, there should have been more than 3,000 bandits on the front lines of MT Guan, MT Tangwang, and MT Daban. And they had only gathered around 200 people here, far from the numbers of those to the north. They already knew there were far more bandits further north and much fewer of them here in the south. But Ren Xiaosu was still a little disappointed when no new bandits came by yesterday. This new bandit group that had just arrived consisted of about 30 people. When they saw a large group of people working from a distance, they were ecstatic. With so many refugees in this settlement, they were going to be rich. In the distance, Jin Lan, Zhang Yihan, Ren Xiaosu, and the others all had mud over their arms and legs. They were not even carrying guns. If they were not refugees, what else could they be? Out here in the wilderness, refugees were the most obedient group of people and could be easily captured like livestock. However, when they arrived at the settlement, the bandit leader suddenly felt that something was off. He saw Ren Xiaosu and the others stand up and watch them calmly as they approached. The bandit leader suddenly muttered, "Why do I get the feeling that they aren't afraid of us?" Meanwhile, Jin Lan said with a sigh, "Why the fuck are there newcomers again? They'll have 0 bullets when they join us. Jin Lan already knew the fate of these bandits who had come from elsewhere. He was just feeling a little ripped off. That bandit stopped his motorcycle beside the ditches and pointed his gun at Ren Xiaosu. All of you, step out of the ditches right now. Haha, you're still in the fucking mood to make clay bricks? Who says that you can make them? Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan looked at each other and began feeling sorry for the new bandit leader at the same time. Half an hour later, the bruised and bloodied bandit leader had his sleeves rolled up inside the ditches. With his eyes swollen, he asked Jin Lan, "How many clay bricks do we have to make every day?" Jin Lan snapped, "Do you know that you people are delaying us? I'm telling you, you can forget about sleeping if you can't produce 30 clay bricks by the end of today." Then the bandit leader glanced at Zhang Yihan beside him. "Wait a minute, I know you. Aren't you the leader of the bandit gang on the west face of Mt. Daban? What are you doing here?" Zhang Yihan also snapped at him, "Just dig silt and cut the crap." The newly arrived bandit leader felt ganged up on. "Aren't y'all bandits too? Why pretend to be refugees here? If I knew that there were so many of you here, I wouldn't have come at all." One in the book, Le Bon claims that there are several characteristics of crowd psychology: impulsiveness, irritability, incapacity to reason, the absence of judgment of the critical spirit, the exaggeration of sentiments, and others. https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/the_crowd_study_the_popular_mind. Initially, the refugees were worried the elevation of the riverbed would cause the channel to burst its banks when the spring floods arrived. That would definitely affect the crops if it happened. But now, they did not have to worry. The spring floods did not scare them. In the river, Jin Lan and the others whose pockets were filled with bullets were making noisy clinking sounds. The new bandits were shocked by this strange scene. Have these people been put under a spell? After Jin Lan finished his work, he called for the new bandits to gather and formally briefed them on their duties, what the bricks could be exchanged for, and the long-term plans they had. For example, they were planning on building 10 small houses after the spring floods and then in the summer. When they heard that, the new bandits were dumbfounded. Could these people still fucking be considered bandits? Then Jin Lan got straight to the point. "Do you know who's in charge of this place? You think you're unlucky to have been caught, but I'm telling you, you're actually very lucky." Jin Lan kept rambling. The bandits switched their attention from Jin Lan to Ren Xiaosu and Yang Xiaojun every now and then, while their eyes gradually became more confused. Currently, Ren Xiaosu did not have anything more to do. Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan would take care of everything for him. He and Yang Xiaojun were only required to reduce the number of casualties when they subdued the bandits at the beginning. Band after band of bandits came here and ended up joining the kill forces. During the day, they would dig for silt to make clay bricks. In the evening, they would memorize the 5 disciplines. Their lives had never been more enriching than this. When the spring floods arrived as expected, everyone could feel the current in the river getting stronger. They could even catch fish in it quite often, but the fish would bite anyone they encountered. If they did not have so many people, it would have been a really challenging task. More and more firewood were piled on the riverbank to be dried, while whole tree trunks broken off by the floods from upstream washed in as well. The thinner branches would be used as firewood, while the thicker trunks could be used for the beams of the houses later on. The refugees in the settlement also helped to construct some temporary mud houses and a small brick kiln for them. The bandits had helped the refugees dig irrigation ditches, as well as the river. And the refugees gave them some help in return. The refugees were no longer afraid of the bandits. All of them were just like residents of a small village living together. One of the refugees came up to Ren Xiaosu and said, "Boss, let's start firing the bricks. Otherwise, when the first rain arrives, a lot of the clay bricks we made will get destroyed." "Sure." Ren Xiaosu responded. A large area of clay bricks had already been laid out at this moment. It looked like it was enough to build more than 10 houses with. Firing bricks was not a particularly difficult task. After placing the bricks into the kiln, the door would be closed. All that needed to be done afterwards was adding firewood into the kiln. As for the process to cool the kiln down with water, that would be left to the bandit who knew how to do it. Bricks were categorized into red and black bricks. The silt clay the bricks were made with contained iron. During the firing process, red bricks were produced when the iron content was completely oxidized to form ferric oxide. If the iron content did not completely oxidize during the firing process, they would end up as black bricks. The brick kiln built by Ren Xiaosu and the others had a roof that did not allow oxygen to enter. Therefore, the fired bricks would all be black in color. How long does it take to fire bricks? Ren Xiaosu asked the bandit with experience in making them. Our kiln is small, so it can only burn around 20,000 bricks in one go. I reckon that it'll take a little more than 10 days from now for the bricks to be ready. However, if we include the time for them to cool down, it'll take another 2 days. The bandit explained, it'll require roughly 2,000 bricks to build a house measuring about 20 square meters. The batch of bricks in the kiln now should be enough to build a dozen houses with. Thinking about living in brick houses soon, the bandits got quite excited. After all, most of the people here had never lived in a brick house before in their lives. A brick house was a symbol of status in town. All right. Ren Xiaosu said to the refugees from the settlement, y'all should send some people over to guard the place. When the bricks are ready, we can build some houses for y'all as well. Jin Lan mumbled, why do we have to build houses for them too when we're the ones making the bricks? Ren Xiaosu shot him a look. Quit complaining. Jin Lan ran off with his head hanging. He shouted for his brothers to produce more clay bricks before the rainy season arrived. Right now, there were more than 400 bandits at the settlement, so they were extremely efficient at their work. But after just a few days, the sky started to turn overcast. Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan got really worried that it might start raining soon, so they said, hurry up, bring the clay bricks in. Carry the dried clay bricks into the mud houses. Halfway through the retrieval, a drizzle enveloped the entire wasteland like a cotton towel. How unlucky! While hiding under the eaves, Jin Lan said, why did this rain have to fall now of all times? Captain, can we go into the houses and take shelter from the rain? A bandit muttered. At this moment, the houses were filled with bricks, and there was no room for anyone to stand inside. When Jin Lan heard that, he stared at the bandit. If you go inside, where do we put the bricks? These are all the bricks that everyone has worked hard to make. Are you gonna waste 'em? The bandits pouted. They had even become inferior to bricks. A large group of people were squatting in the rain around a huddle of mud houses and guarding the bricks within. Jin Lan muttered, boss still wants to build houses for the refugees. I dunno what he's thinking. They won't even be enough for our brothers to live in. Why, Captain, are you complaining against boss now? Someone whispered. I'm not complaining. Jin Lan curled his lips. I can tell that those two are really different from those big shots in the strongholds. Those big shots look down their noses at us, but neither of them do. Have you seen any big shots from the consortium's dig for silt in the river like us? I'm utterly convinced by this couple, if only because they were willing to do work with us. What do you mean, Captain? I'm just annoyed. Why should those refugees be allowed to live in a house when they did not even make a single clay brick? Jin Lan said angrily. But the brick kiln was built by them, someone muttered. Jin Lan glared at him. You talk too much. But at this moment, some refugees braved the rain and came over, calling for Jin Lan, don't just stand there in the rain. Get in our huts and take cover from the rain. We've discussed this with the others. Y'all can go into whichever house you want. There's definitely enough space for everyone. We also have hot soup at home, so y'all can drink some to warm yourselves up. Jin Lan was stunned for a moment. Then he hurriedly said, oh, Yet, we'll come over right away. A bandit next to him asked in a whisper, Captain, aren't we supposed to be angry about building the houses for them? Who says I'm angry? Jin Lan rebutted, our fellow villagers are so kind to us. What's wrong with building some houses for them? We have to be more open-minded like our boss, understand? We should be more kind. Once the rain stops, we'll start building the houses for them. Furthermore, there were a lot of people in this group. With more than 300 of them heading up the mountain together, they would not be mistaken for some small gang at a glance. At the very least, they looked way better than the ordinary bandits just in appearance alone. Some bandits were so poor that they even wore tattered pants, much less had bandanas and a large banner. When they arrived on the north face, they parked their motorcycles by the side of the road. The leader of the group walked towards a small mountain path that would lead to a campsite. These fierce-looking bandits trekked on the path up the mountain silently. No one was speaking. Everyone was carrying their guns in front of them so they would be ready to deal with anything unexpected. They had thought there would be people lying in ambush to put up a fierce resistance against them. However, the whole stretch of the mountain path was silent, and there wasn't even anyone keeping a lookout. When they reached the entrance of the mountain hideout, the leader pushed open the wooden door with a creak. He was not afraid of anyone sneaking up to attack him and entered first. But when he went inside, he saw this mountain hideout was totally empty. It seemed like no one had been living here for some time. The leader said softly, "There's something strange about this empty daban. We've come across 5 or 6 empty hideouts along the way already. What's happened here? Could it be that it's been getting too hard to get by these days, so everyone decided to head back to the consortium's factories to work? Since there's still a few hideouts on the mountain, should we go and look at them?" the leader's trusted aide asked. "Let's go. I don't believe that all the bandits on MT Daban turned over a new leaf." The leader sneered as he led his group further up the mountain. It wasn't until they checked another 3 hideouts before they discovered a few sporadic bandits in one of the campsites. When these solitary bandits saw the turnout, they immediately knelt down on the spot and begged for mercy, "Please don't kill us." The leader thought for a while and asked with a frown, "Where are your other men?" The 2-bit bandits wailed, "They were captured by bandits." The leader was stunned. "Aren't y'all fucking bandits yourselves?" This group of people got so angry that they started laughing. They were only supposed to be abducting refugees. Why would anyone even abduct bandits? But actually, they were also here to recruit the bandits from the other mountain hideouts. They had thought their plans were well ahead of the other groups, but who would have expected that someone had beaten them to it? The leader asked, "Who's the leader here? Stand up and talk." The bandits shouted, "Our boss was taken away as well." The leader was shocked. "Damn! Who captured them? How did the few of you escape unharmed?" One of the bandits said, "They were captured by the refugees from a settlement at the foot of a mountain to the south. Us few only managed to escape because we ran away in advance when we sensed that something was wrong." "How large is that settlement?" the leader asked curiously. 400 to 500 people live there. They are extremely fierce, and there's 2 supernatural beings among them as well," the bandit said. The leader became wary at this moment. There were 2 supernatural beings in a refugee settlement? How could that be a normal refugee settlement? The leader thought for a moment and asked, "What kind of people do they usually capture? And how do they capture them?" "They take anyone they come across. Basically, the 2 supernatural beings do all the work so the others don't have to do anything at all. Our boss was beaten to the ground. What do they do with the people after capturing them?" the leader asked. "I don't know. In any case, I don't think they killed them. The group just gathers there to dig ditches and make bricks." The leader said to his trusted aide next to him, "It seems like this group of people don't have any sense of vigilance. Su Jinyuan, take a group of people with you and let them capture you. After you join them, get a better understanding of their situation and wait for my signal to concentrate an attack on them. The bandit named Su Jinyuan nodded. Got it. He picked out 11 people to head down the mountain with him. The leader looked at another person and said, head back north and get some brothers to come over. It seems like we might be in for a tough battle, but we should still be able to handle it without much effort. In any case, just get them to come here. All of a sudden, the original bandits of this mountain hideout noticed the tiger head banner. You're that bandit gang from the north. The leader smiled. You're pretty observant. Su Jinyuan aggressively led a group of people to attack the refugee settlement. As expected, they were also captured by Ren Xiaosu. In order to make it more realistic, Su Jinyuan and the others deliberately resisted capture with all their might. Although they couldn't land a shot on Ren Xiaosu, they still looked quite aggressive in their attacks. After Ren Xiaosu handed Su Jinyuan over to Jin Lan, Yang Xiaojun suddenly whispered, something's a little off with this group. How? Ren Xiaosu asked. Someone's trained them on how to hold their guns, and there's also some form of cooperation between the 12 of them. You can see that there should have been a group symbol engraved on their motorcycles, but it was deliberately scratched off on their way here. Yang Xiaojun had a very keen eye, so there was no way of hiding any details from her, especially when it was related to firearms. These people only knew there were 2 supernatural beings here. Although they had played their parts well, Yang Xiaojun could still see the problems with their act. Are they soldiers? Ren Xiaosu asked. Not really. There are no signs they've been through the tough training regimen of the Tairi. I'm guessing this group of people must have been sent by one of the larger bandit gangs in the valley. Who knows, they might have bad intentions, Yang Xiaojun said. Ren Xiaosu chuckled. It's all right, we can let them stay here. Ren Xiaosu didn't seem worried about this group of people in the slightest. When the rain stopped, Su Jinyuan and his group started digging for silt in the river after being put through Jin Lan's systematic training. What surprised them was Jin Lan's claims that these 2 supernatural beings were from Stronghold 178. Why would Stronghold 178 get involved with matters in the valley? Su Jinyuan was rather skeptical. Then he was shocked to discover that the people digging silt with him were all bandits as well. Could it be that they were all here because they wanted to join Stronghold 178, just like what Jin Lan had hinted at? Brother Su, what do we do now? Someone asked in a whisper. Su Jinyuan thought for a moment and said, we'll continue making clay bricks with them. Didn't they say that we can get our guns back once we collect 100 bullets each? We can only coordinate with our brothers back at the lair if we get our guns back. All right. A few days later, the brick firing process was completed. Jin Lan and the others happily waited for the temperature in the kiln to cool down before carrying the black bricks out. Someone next to Su Jinyuan said, Brother Su, why did they come here and work so hard to make bricks when they could have been bandits instead? Su Jinyuan thought for a moment before answering, they could be building defenses. No way. I heard it's because they wanted to build houses for the refugees. I also heard that the refugees are quite good to these bandits and even offered them food. Cut the bullshit. Su Jinyuan snapped at him, how could it be possible that bandits would build houses for refugees? Isn't that like a weasel dropping by a chicken coop for a visit? And you said that refugees offered food to the bandits? I don't believe it one bit. But at noon, the refugees came over to the riverbank with baskets and said with warm smiles, everyone, come and eat lunch. We've cooked some ears of corn for all y'all. Please don't mind the simple fare. Jin Lan and Zhang Yihan took the baskets from the refugees and distributed the corn to everyone one by one. The ears of corn were from last fall's harvest, and the refugees could not finish eating them during the winter, but no one minded that. Su Jinyuan was stunned for a while. What the fucking hell is this? Just as he finished saying that, Jin Lan stuffed a piping hot ear of corn into his hands and said, talk less, eat while it's hot. Hot.